Have you ever wondered what secrets lie hidden in the relics of our ancient past? Welcome to Unearthed Secrets, where we explore the world's most mysterious discoveries, from megaliths in Ireland to ancient fission sites in Africa. Before we begin, like, subscribe, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Let's dive in. The Bóinne stone carvings. In the rolling green fields of County Meath, Ireland, where the River Bóinne bends and shimmers under soft clouds, lies one of the most mysterious and enduring legacies of Europe's prehistoric world. Bóinne, the Palace of the Bóinne, is a cluster of ancient monuments, older than Stonehenge, older than the Egyptian pyramids, and yet still holding secrets that even the most devoted archaeologists and scholars have never been able to fully unravel. Among these mysteries, none are more haunting, more quietly unsettling, than the stone carvings that lie deep within the passage. Tombs, spirals, lozenges, chevrons, serpent-like coils, diamond patterns, sunbursts, and arrangements of geometric shapes that seem to whisper from a time before writing, before history, before any clear record of why they were made. Tonight, we will wander, slowly, carefully, into this ancient place and linger with these carvings, as if we too are part of the ritual silence that has guarded them for over 5,000 years. Imagine, if you will, approaching the great mound of Newgrange itself. From afar it rises like a grassy hill, smooth and rounded, with a gleaming white wall of quartz stones at its base, carefully reconstructed to reflect what the original builders may have intended, a dazzling facade that once shone in the winter sun. The mound is massive, spanning more than 80 meters in diameter, and ringed by huge curbstones, each carved with its own distinct designs. The most famous of these curbstones, the entrance stone, greets you first. Its face is adorned with swirling triple spirals, their curves winding and unwinding in endless rhythm, as if they are waves on the sea, or perhaps maps of the cosmos. No two spirals are alike. Some are tight, controlled, purposeful, others spread loosely, as though drawn by a freer hand flowing outward into nothingness. The stone is not only a threshold, it is an invitation into mystery, and perhaps a warning that once you step beyond, you enter a different world, the realm of the dead, or the gods, or both. You crouch, for the entrance is low, and pass into the long passage that leads to the chamber at the heart of Newgrange. The walls are lined with large slabs, upright stones, each one chosen, transported, and set into place with effort beyond imagining. And as your eyes adjust to the dim light, you see that many of these stones too bear carvings, spirals again, but also zigzags, diamonds, arcs, and cup marks. Some overlap, layers of meaning etched upon the same surface, as though the carvers returned again and again, deepening their signs. What were these carvings meant to say? Were they records of the sun and moon, of seasons and tides? Were they symbols of trance states, visions glimpsed in the stillness of ritual darkness? Or were they maps of something altogether more elusive, journeys of the soul, paths to the other world, patterns that only the initiated could follow? At the end of the passage lies the great cruciform chamber, roofed with an intricate corbelled vault that has held its place against gravity and weather for over 5 millennia. In this chamber stand 3 great stone basins, likely used to hold offerings, cremated remains, or sacred items. Above them, in the faint play of torchlight, the carvings seem to come alive, their lines shifting and shimmering as shadows move across the stone. And it is here, in this very chamber, that something extraordinary happens each year. On the morning of the winter solstice, the rising sun shines through the narrow roof box above the entrance, sending a shaft of golden light down the passage, striking the chamber, and illuminating the carvings in a breathtaking spectacle of alignment. For 17 minutes, the tomb comes alive with light, the patterns etched into its stones blazing into clarity, before fading once again into darkness. The people who carved these stones, who built this mound, must have understood the cycles of the heavens with incredible precision. They tracked the turning of the year, the dance of sun and shadow, with knowledge handed down through generations. But more than knowledge, there is intention, an artistry that transcends mere utility. These are not just markers of time, they are symbols charged with power, with meaning that resonates far beyond calendars and clocks. Some scholars believe the spirals represent the cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, the endless turning of existence. Others see them as solar symbols, wheels of the sun, turning endlessly across the sky. Some argue they are maps of the soul's journey, the inward spiral representing descent into the other world, and the outward spiral, the return. And there are those who see in them the universal shapes of altered states of consciousness, the kinds of visions that arise in the mind when the senses are deprived, or when ritual, rhythm, and trance open the doors of perception. What is striking always is how universal these shapes are. Spirals and chevrons appear not only here in Ireland, but across prehistoric Europe, in Spain, in Brittany, in Malta. Even beyond Europe, spirals surface in the carvings of distant cultures, as if the symbol were born not of one place, but of the very fabric of human thought itself. and yet the Bóinne carvings remain uniquely their own. Their density, their complexity, their placement all seem to be part of a larger design, one that scholars can study, can admire, but never quite decode. Pause for a moment, and imagine the people who created these carvings. Farmers, yes, tilling the fertile soil of the Bóinne Valley, raising cattle and sheep, planting barley and wheat, but they were also visionaries, astronomers, artists. By night, perhaps, they gathered by firelight, retelling stories of the ancestors. By day, they hauled massive stones across the landscape, carving them with painstaking care, shaping a monument that would stand not for one generation, but for thousands of years. The effort alone defies comprehension. The largest stones weigh several tons. They were dragged, most likely, from quarries miles away, without wheels, without iron tools, only with determination, ropes, rollers, and human strength. And once in place, they were not left plain. They were carved, decorated, imbued with meaning, as though the builders knew that stone, though silent, could carry voices into eternity. And so the voices remain, though their words are lost to us. We stand now, thousands of years later, gazing at the same spirals, the same chevrons, the same lozenges, and feel the same pull of mystery. We cannot translate them, but we cannot ignore them either. They reach across time, quietly insistent, refusing to be forgotten. Step back outside now, into the fresh Irish air. The mound looms behind you, its white quartz face glowing faintly, even in cloudy weather. All around, the valley stretches, dotted with more mounds, more passage tombs, Nouth, Douth, and countless smaller sites, each with its own carvings, its own echoes of the same mysterious language. Together they form one of the greatest concentrations of megalithic art in all of Europe, a gallery not of paintings or sculptures, but of engravings carved into stone. It is art that asks for patience, for silence, for the willingness to linger, and perhaps that is what makes it endure. For 5,000 years, people have come here. Farmers, monks, kings, archaeologists, tourists. They have knelt before the entrance stone, walked the passage, stared into the spirals, and wondered. The carvings do not answer, but they do not fade. They remain, steadfast, waiting for each new pair of eyes, each new imagination, to ask once more, "What do you mean?" And perhaps that is the secret. Perhaps the carvings were never meant to be solved like puzzles, but to be experienced. Perhaps their power lies not in their explanation, but in their effect, the way they draw us into silence, into awe, into a connection with something larger than ourselves. As night falls over the Bóinne Valley, the mound grows dark and quiet again. Inside, the spirals sleep in the shadows, waiting for the solstice sun to wake them. Outside, the grass rustles in the wind, and the river flows steadily past, as it has for thousands of years. The carvings remain, silent, enduring, carved into stone by hands long gone, voices long forgotten, yet still speaking in their own way. They are the dreams of the first farmers, etched into eternity, guardians of mysteries too vast, too ancient, to ever be fully known. And so, let them rest. The Coso artifact. A soft, warm breeze drifts across the desert floor of California, lifting grains of sand and dust, and carrying with it the faint, dry scent of sagebrush and sunbaked stone. In this quiet expanse where the landscape seems almost endless, one might stumble upon something extraordinary, something that defies immediate understanding. A small rock, unremarkable at first glance, yet holding within it a secret that has puzzled observers for decades. This is the Coso artifact, a mysterious object encased in rock, discovered in the early 1960s, lying silently amidst the rugged terrain, a whisper of the unknown awaiting careful attention. The story begins with a group of rock collectors in the Coso Mountains of California, combing through the arid desert in search of geodes and other interesting mineral specimens. Among the scattered stones, one specimen stood out, an ordinary rock in appearance, rough and weathered by time, yet when carefully chipped open, it revealed something entirely unexpected. Inside, embedded in the concretion of the rock, was an object that resembled a small man-made device, a metallic core, seemingly resembling a spark plug, surrounded by layers of hardened sediment. The moment of discovery was simple, yet profound, for within the rock lay a mystery that would provoke speculation, debate, and endless fascination. The Coso artifact's outer layers of concretion suggest that it has been encased in rock for thousands of years, perhaps tens of thousands, yet the object inside seemed impossibly modern. The metallic core was cylindrical, with grooves and ridges suggesting craftsmanship beyond what would be expected in a prehistoric or natural context. It sparked questions. How could such a device, apparently designed with precision, become encased in rock that appears so ancient? Was it a geological anomaly, a hoax, or a genuine anomaly pointing to a forgotten technology? The artifact challenges our understanding of time, technology, and the very narrative of human history. Researchers and enthusiasts have examined the artifact with microscopes, X-rays, and chemical analysis. seeking clues in the composition of the metal, the concretion, and the internal structure. Some have suggested that the metallic object is, indeed, a modern spark plug, similar to those used in combustion engines in the 1920s. Yet the concretion surrounding it appears to have formed over thousands of years, a process requiring immense time. This apparent contradiction has fueled countless theories, from lost ancient civilizations capable of technology beyond what we traditionally imagine, to meteoric events that could encase modern objects in mineral layers through natural forces. The artifact's presence in such an isolated location adds to the enigma. The Coso Mountains are remote, rugged, and sparsely populated, a place where the echoes of history linger in silence. The desert wind sweeps across canyons and dry washes, carrying away the footprints of those who come to study or marvel at the object. The artifact itself rests quietly in museums or private collections, far from its original resting place, yet its story continues to ripple outward, capturing imaginations and provoking reflection on the nature of history and possibility. Some have speculated that the Coso artifact could be an example of what is sometimes called an out-of-place artifact, a term used for objects that seem to contradict established archaeological understanding. Could it be evidence of forgotten knowledge, a relic of a civilization whose technological abilities were lost to time? Or is it a more mundane phenomenon, a combination of human activity and natural processes coincidentally creating an unusual formation? The questions themselves invite contemplation, encouraging us to consider the intersection of human creativity, natural processes, and the passage of time. The concretion encasing the object is itself a fascinating study. Over time, minerals in groundwater can precipitate around a foreign object, gradually hardening and forming layers of stone. In the case of the Coso artifact, the concretion is dense, weathered, and convincingly ancient in appearance. Its formation suggests a slow, patient process, one that requires an intimate collaboration between water, minerals, and time. Observing it closely, one can imagine the centuries, even millennia, passing as layers gradually envelop the object, a silent accumulation of nature's quiet work, turning a human-made item into a relic seemingly born of the earth itself. Speculation has extended beyond geology and archaeology into realms of imagination. Some have suggested alternative timelines, imagining ancient inventors, lost technologies, or even visitors from other worlds. Others focus on natural explanations, considering phenomena such as fulgurites, hollow tubes formed when lightning strikes sand, or other geological curiosities. Yet whatever explanation one leans toward, the artifact demands attention. It encourages careful observation, gentle curiosity, and an appreciation for the subtle dialogue between human artifacts and natural processes. Examining the artifact is a meditation on time. The metallic core, with its precise grooves and industrial design, seems to belong to a modern age. The surrounding rock, weathered and hardened, tells a story that stretches across millennia. Together they form a puzzle, a conversation between epochs, a bridge connecting contemporary life with the deep, slow rhythms of the natural world. There is something calming about the thought of time's patience, the way it envelops, preserves, and slowly transforms, indifferent to human perspective, yet intimately tied to every action we take. The desert landscape itself contributes to the artifact's aura. Vast expanses of sand, scrub, and rock create an environment that feels timeless. The wind sighs through canyons, and the sunlight glances across ridges, revealing textures that have existed since long before humans walked the land. In this quiet, the artifact stands as both anomaly and familiar object, a testament to mystery, observation, and the layering of meaning across time. One can almost imagine the hands of those who first placed the object, the long centuries that passed, and the eventual discovery, a moment connecting past, present, and future in a single, contemplative instant. Scholars have approached the artifact with varying levels of skepticism. Some insist it is a simple spark plug, a recent object misinterpreted by enthusiasts. Others argue that the concretion's apparent age defies simple explanation, pointing to either a remarkable geological phenomenon or a significant gap in our understanding of material processes. Regardless of the conclusion, the Coso artifact continues to invite careful study, curiosity, and a willingness to entertain both the plausible and the improbable. Considering the artifact in its broader context, it becomes a meditation on human perception. We are drawn to anomalies, to mysteries that challenge our assumptions, to objects that sit at the boundary of understanding. The Coso artifact embodies this tension. It is simultaneously familiar and strange, ordinary in appearance, yet extraordinary in implication. It encourages slow observation, gentle reflection, and the kind of curiosity that respects time as much as knowledge. Its discovery also highlights the relationship between humans and their environment. The collectors who first uncovered it were not archaeologists but enthusiasts, quietly wandering the desert, drawn by a love of stone and nature. Their careful attention allowed an object, otherwise hidden, to emerge from the sands of time. In this, the artifact reminds us that discovery is often a matter of patience, attentiveness, and quiet observation, qualities that are as valuable now as they were in the past. In examining the Coso artifact, one cannot help but consider the broader implications of our understanding of history. The layers of stone surrounding a metallic object challenge assumptions about chronological progress and technological development. They ask us to pause, to consider the processes of nature, the persistence of materials, and the ways in which human action and geological time can intersect in surprising ways. Each layer, each grain of mineral speaks of patience and change, of slow, inevitable transformation, and of the mysteries that survive in silence. The artifact's enigmatic quality also connects it to the human love of story. We are drawn to objects that resist explanation, that invite narrative, that allow imagination to wander along paths that facts alone may not illuminate. In the case of the Coso artifact, the lines between geology, history, and possibility blur. We consider what might have been, what might yet be discovered, and how one small object can prompt contemplation across disciplines, centuries, and human experience. Even today, the Coso artifact resides quietly, observed by few but considered by many. It is catalogued, studied, photographed, and debated, yet it retains its mystery. The concretion is intact, the metallic core remains, and the object continues to evoke questions about the relationship between human invention, natural processes, and the passage of time. It is, in a way, a silent teacher, reminding us that the world is more intricate and layered than our immediate perceptions allow. Walking through the arid hills and valleys near the Coso Mountains, it is easy to imagine the artifact in situ, embedded in stone as it was when first discovered. One can almost feel the slow march of time, the patient accumulation of minerals, the constant, gentle reshaping of the landscape, and the quiet persistence of objects against the erosion of years. The artifact, encased and hidden, becomes a meditation on impermanence and endurance, on what is preserved and what is lost. The Coso artifact also speaks to curiosity, to the human desire to understand and explore. Its discovery is a testament to observation, careful handling, and a willingness to ask questions that may not have immediate answers. It is a reminder that the world is full of wonders, both ordinary and extraordinary, and that even small, unassuming objects can hold profound significance when considered within the vast context of time, environment, and human perception. In contemplating the artifact, one is drawn into a quiet dialogue between the past and present. The metallic core suggests the hands of a maker, the concretion reflects the patient work of nature, and together they form a narrative that transcends human lifetimes. It is an invitation to slow down, to look closely, to consider processes and possibilities beyond immediate comprehension. Each observation, each reflection, is a way of connecting to the deep, intricate flow of history and geology that surrounds us. The Coso artifact remains a symbol of mystery, a relic that challenges our understanding of time and technology. Its layers, metallic core, and remote desert home combine to create a story that is both puzzling and captivating. It embodies the beauty of the unknown, the allure of discovery, and the enduring power of objects to evoke wonder and contemplation. As the desert sun sets behind distant ridges, casting long shadows over rock and sand, the Coso artifact rests silently, a small, encased mystery that has endured for decades, waiting patiently to be observed, studied, and imagined. It reminds us that the world is full of secrets, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those with patience, curiosity, and the gentle attention to notice the extraordinary in the seemingly ordinary. In the quiet of the desert, where wind moves softly across stone, where time stretches and bends in silent layers, the Coso artifact continues to intrigue, inviting reflection, contemplation, and a connection to the subtle rhythms of nature and history. It stands as a testament to mystery, endurance, and the delicate balance between human creation and natural forces, a story that is still being written by every careful eye that observes its enigmatic form. And so the Coso artifact remains, quietly encased, patiently waiting, a bridge between the known and the unknown, between human curiosity and the patient hand of time, an enduring mystery that calls us to wonder and reflect on the layers of history that surround every stone, every landscape, every artifact hidden in the folds of the earth. The London Hammer. In the quiet town of London, Texas, not the sprawling city across the ocean, but a much smaller place, tucked into the rolling countryside of the American South, there is an object that has puzzled, fascinated, and unsettled people for decades. At first glance, it looks ordinary, a hammer, with a handle and a head, not unlike the tools you might see hanging in a workshop, resting in a carpenter's box, or lying forgotten on a shed's dusty shelf. But this hammer is not ordinary. It is sealed in stone, and the stone itself is said to be hundreds of millions of years old. The object is known as the London Hammer. It is sometimes called the Texas Hammer, or in more mysterious tones, the hammer that should not exist. Its story begins, as so many stories of strange artifacts do, not in a laboratory or a museum, but in the hands of people who simply stumbled across it without searching for mysteries at all. The year was 1936. A man named Max Hahn, along with his wife Emma, were walking along the banks of the Red Creek near London, Texas. It was a warm day, with the kind of dry heat that presses against the skin in that part of the country. They were looking, not for anything special, but simply enjoying the outdoors. Along the creek bed, they noticed a curious rock, lighter in color than the others, and strange in shape. Something about it seemed different. They picked it up. What they found astonished them. Embedded in the stone, tightly sealed inside, was a piece of wood protruding from one side. And at the end of that wood, encased but visible, was the unmistakable form of a hammer's head. It was as though time itself had played a trick, taking something familiar, almost mundane, and burying it deep within ancient rock. The hammer, once examined more closely, seemed at first like a typical tool from the 19th century. The head was made of iron, 6 inches long, with a handle partially preserved. But the stone surrounding it was where the true mystery lay. Geologists estimated that the rock was not hundreds, not thousands, but many millions of years old. Some even claimed it dated back over 400 million years, to a time before humans, before mammals, before even the dinosaurs had walked the earth. How, then, could a hammer, an object of deliberate human manufacture, be found within such ancient stone? It is a question that has lingered ever since. The London hammer was eventually cut open, revealing the tool more clearly. The hammerhead itself was made of almost pure iron, about 96%, with a small amount of chlorine and sulfur. Curiously, it lacked many of the impurities normally found in iron objects forged by humans in the 19th century. In fact, some metallurgists who examined it noted that the quality of the iron seemed unusually high, far purer than what was typical for that period. The handle, though partly fossilized, still bore its wooden form, as if time had paused mid-transformation. For some, the London hammer became a symbol of something profound, evidence that our understanding of history, of human origins, might be incomplete. If a hammer truly existed inside rock hundreds of millions of years old, it would mean that humans, or something capable of making tools, existed on Earth long before science currently acknowledges. It would suggest a rewriting of history itself, and so the hammer passed from curiosity into legend. Skeptics, of course, have their explanations. They argue that the rock surrounding the hammer is not as ancient as it seems. Perhaps the hammer, a genuine 19th century tool, was encased in a concretion, a natural process by which minerals harden around an object, forming a stony shell. Such concretions can in certain environments form in decades, not millennia. In this view, the hammer is old, but not impossibly so, just a relic of early American settlers, preserved in stone over time. But not everyone is convinced. The idea of a hammer sealed in rock far older than humanity is too tantalizing to dismiss, and so the London hammer lives on, not only as an artifact, but as a story. Imagine for a moment the silent journey of this tool. Once perhaps it lay in the hands of someone, a craftsman, a farmer, maybe a miner, swinging it against nail and wood, the rhythm of work echoing in the Texan air. Perhaps it was dropped one day, forgotten, or left behind. Rain fell, soil shifted, rivers carried sediments. Over years, then centuries, minerals seeped into the wood, hardening, fossilizing. Rock grew around it, layer upon layer, until the hammer was no longer a tool, but a fossil of human labor itself. And then, much later, it was found again, lifted from stone into curious hands. What makes the London hammer so compelling is not only the object itself, but the questions it raises. Are there other artifacts like it, hidden within the earth, waiting to be found? Objects that blur the line between what we think we know and what might yet be revealed. Across the world, there are whispers of such discoveries, artifacts out of place, appearing where they should not be. A nail found in sandstone said to be hundreds of millions of years old. A tiny, precise metal sphere discovered in South Africa, with grooves etched around its circumference, though dated to billions of years ago. A spark plug, sealed within a chunk of geode-like rock. Each of these stories is met with skepticism, dismissal, or wonder. The London hammer, however, remains the most enduring of them all. Today, the hammer resides in a small private museum, the Creation Evidence Museum, in Glen Rose, Texas. It is displayed in a glass case, where visitors can gaze at it, wondering, debating, imagining. Some come to see it as proof of their beliefs, that human history is longer, stranger, and more mysterious than textbooks say. Others view it as a fascinating example of natural processes, a hammer transformed by the Earth's chemistry into something that seems miraculous. And yet, whether one believes in its mystery or its mundanity, the hammer itself endures. In the stillness of the museum, it sits silently in its stone casing, as it has for so long, a relic of work, of hands, of lives long past. It speaks not in words, but in suggestion, hinting that history is not a straight line, but a tapestry woven with threads we cannot always see. As night falls, one might imagine the hammer resting back in its creek bed, half buried in soil, the water running gently over it, fireflies blinking in the Texas dark. Stars spread across the sky, as they were long before the hammer was made, and as they will be long after. The London hammer is, perhaps, not only a mystery of geology or history, it is also a reminder that the world holds secrets, small and large, hidden in stone, waiting for chance and curiosity to uncover them, and maybe, just maybe, it is also a whisper across time, from one set of hands to another, hands that made it, hands that lost it, hands that found it, hands that now point to it and wonder. The hammer remains, silent, encased in stone, waiting, as it always has. The giant stone jars of Assam, far to the northeast of India, where the land folds itself into green hills, mist-swathed valleys, and forests that hum with unseen life, there exists a mystery that has puzzled both locals and scholars for decades. The region is quiet, far from the restless crowds of cities, and its silence is often broken only by the sound of cicadas or the distant rush of rivers cutting through the jungle. It is here, in Assam, that an ancient enigma rests, hundreds of enormous stone jars, scattered across ridges and valleys, standing as though waiting for someone to return. They are not ordinary vessels. Some rise taller than a person, others wide enough that a child could lie within them. They sit upon grassy clearings, on hilltops, half buried in earth, or tilting precariously with age. Carved from solid stone, their weight is immense, their purpose unknown. For centuries these jars have stood silently in the landscape, staring into the endless monsoon skies above them. Unlike monuments that shout their presence, pyramids, temples, towering statues, these jars whisper. They are subtle, waiting for you to come closer, to peer into their hollow interiors and wonder. And when you do, the questions are many. Why here, in the hills of Assam? Why jars, of all things, so massive, so heavy, so carefully shaped? And above all, who made them, and for what reason? The answers remain elusive, yet the jars endure, and so we begin our slow walk among them, in the stillness of the highland air. The first sighting of these jars is disorienting. You climb a hillside, the grass brushing against your legs, and there they are, row upon row, as though arranged by an invisible hand. Their surfaces are rough, marked by time and weather. Some are cracked, others moss-covered. A few are carved so precisely they seem almost modern. The local villagers have always known of them. They speak of them not as curiosities, but as part of the land itself, something woven into the hills as naturally as the stones or the streams. Children grow up playing around them. Farmers pass them without much thought, but for outsiders the jars are startling, like stepping into a place where time has frozen. The jars vary in size, but many stand taller than the average person. Some weigh several tons, yet were dragged and carved from stone outcrops kilometers away. Imagine for a moment the effort required. No machines, no iron cranes, only hands, ropes, and determination. Why then go to such trouble? One theory suggests they were funerary vessels. Archaeological excavations have revealed fragments of bones, beads, and pottery near the jars, hinting at ancient burial practices. Perhaps the dead were placed inside, the jars acting as silent tombs overlooking the valleys. Another idea is more symbolic, that the jars were never meant to hold bodies, but spirits, vessels not for the living, but for the journey of the soul. The hollowness of the jars could have been a passage, a container not for matter, but for meaning. Others suggest something different altogether, that the jars once stored food, water, or even fermenting rice beer for large communal gatherings. But if so, why carve them so far from villages, and why abandon them to the hills? As you walk among the jars, you notice their arrangement is rarely random. They stand in clusters, like families, or align in rows as though marking paths unseen. Some tilt toward the horizon, pointing almost deliberately at something beyond. Were they part of a map, a message in stone, spread across the land? The mystery deepens when you realize these jars are not unique to Assam alone. Far away, across the Bay of Bengal, in Laos, exists another plane of jars, equally enigmatic. The resemblance is uncanny, giant vessels scattered across hills and valleys, equally shrouded in mystery. Could the two regions separated by mountains and forests have once been linked by a forgotten culture? Or did different peoples, separated by great distances, arrive at the same strange idea, that to carve massive jars was to touch the sacred? The weather in Assam is often misty, especially at dawn. Imagine the scene, a hillside covered in fog, where the jars rise like ghosts from the earth. The silence is broken only by birdsong. You walk among them, feeling the cool stone under your fingers, wondering if those who carved them walked the same paths. The local legends add their own flavor to the mystery. Some say giants once lived here, and the jars were their cups, discarded after feasts. Others believe the jars were brewing vessels for rice beer, left behind after a great celebration of the gods. To some villagers, the jars are sacred, to be respected but not disturbed. Archaeologists, of course, look for evidence in bones and artifacts. But even with modern study, the purpose of the jars remains unproven. Every fragment of pottery, every bead, every tool found near them, answers one question only to raise another. Pause for a moment, and picture the effort. A block of sandstone, heavier than a car, chipped and carved into a hollow vessel, transported across rugged terrain without wheels or modern tools, lifted upright, placed carefully on a hilltop, and then multiplied hundreds of times. Who organized this? Who decided that such monumental effort was worth it? Surely there must have been a reason, something important enough to demand generations of work. But that reason is lost. The jars remain, but the people who made them have vanished into history. The more you look, the more the jars take on personalities of their own. Some are cracked and broken, lying sideways as if in eternal rest. Others stand proudly, unbroken by time. Some tilt toward one another, as though in conversation. If you stay long enough, you begin to sense a strange order in them, like an ancient rhythm only the earth remembers. And perhaps that is the true mystery, not what they were for, but why they feel so alive, even now. In the quiet of Assam's hills, the jars remain unmoving, yet they invite movement of the mind. They ask you to imagine feasts, funerals, ceremonies, forgotten journeys. They ask you to listen, not with your ears, but with your curiosity. The world is filled with ruins that explain themselves, temples with carvings, tombs with inscriptions, but these jars give nothing away. They hold only silence, and in that silence lies their power, because sometimes what makes a place sacred is not what it tells you, but what it refuses to reveal. And so the jars wait. Year after year, season after season, they endure the rains and the sun. They have no voices, no inscriptions, no images carved on their walls. They are, in every sense, silent idols, but perhaps silence is the oldest language of all. You walk back down the hillside, the jars fading into the mist behind you. They remain there, as they always have, patient, immovable, and eternal. And as you leave, you realize that the mystery is not a puzzle to be solved, but a presence to be felt. The jars will never tell us their secrets, and that, in its own way, is the secret itself. The Saqqara Bird. In the warm silence of Egypt's ancient sands, there is a story that drifts on the air like a feather caught between worlds. Imagine a desert evening, the horizon glowing with the last embers of the sun, and the faint outline of the pyramids standing against the reddened sky. Somewhere near the necropolis of Saqqara, among tombs and chambers built for eternity, an object was uncovered. A small delicate carving of a bird, fashioned not from stone or clay, but from wood, and shaped with a precision that has left scholars and dreamers alike unsettled for decades. This artifact is known today as the Saqqara Bird. Only a handspan in length, carved from sycamore wood, it rests quietly in the collections of the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. Its wings are broad and straight, its tail unlike those of natural birds, cut flat and vertical like the rudder of an airplane. Its face is plain, its form simple, yet within its shape lies an enigma that refuses to be silenced. Was this bird merely a toy, an offering, or could it have been something more? Something that whispered of flight long before humanity had the means to take to the skies. The story of the Saqqara Bird begins, as many such mysteries do, not in the brilliance of sunlight, but in the quiet shadows of a tomb. In 1898, during excavations near Saqqara, the ancient burial ground of Egypt's Old Kingdom, archaeologists recovered this curious wooden figure. At first it seemed little more than an oddity. Egyptologists catalogued it alongside countless other funerary objects, labeling it simply as a wooden bird. And yet, the more carefully one looks, the more questions seem to multiply. Unlike depictions of falcons or ibis or hawks, birds that filled the Egyptian imagination with divine power, this carving lacked the expected details. It had no carved feathers, no eyes painted on with inlaid stone, no ornament of ritual or hieroglyphic sign. It was not decorated as a sacred symbol would be, nor carved in the stylized form of a deity's emblem. Instead, its design appeared starkly functional. Its wings were positioned horizontally, not upward or downward. Its tail, flat and vertical, mimicked the rudder of modern aircraft rather than the fan of a bird's feathers. Its center of gravity, when tested, gave it a surprising capacity for gliding. And so the Saqqara Bird began to trouble the minds of those who looked at it too closely. Was it a mere child's toy? A simple funerary offering of play? Was it a model of a bird lost to time? Or could it have been, impossibly, a fragment of some ancient knowledge of aerodynamics, preserved in wood and buried in silence until the sands of the 19th century revealed it again? The ancient Egyptians were, after all, masters of observation. They studied the flight of birds across the Nile's horizon, the way hawks circled in the thermals above the desert, the way reeds bent in the river breeze. Their civilization was built upon careful attention to the stars, to the flood cycles of the Nile, to the invisible mathematics that allowed them to raise stone upon stone into pyramids that still stand today. Could it be so unthinkable that among their quiet studies, someone, at some time, wondered how a bird flew, and carved this little wooden figure not as a symbol but as an experiment? As you listen, picture the necropolis of Saqqara as it once was. Long avenues of limestone walls, rising tombs decorated with painted reliefs of daily life, burial shafts plunging into the earth where nobles rested in chambers lined with offerings. In such places, artifacts of every kind were left for the journey into the afterlife: jars of food, figurines of servants, games for amusement, models of boats for travel across the eternal river. To place a wooden bird in a tomb was not unusual, but this bird, this one was different. Its silence spoke not of ritual, but of inquiry. Its shape, more than a symbol, seemed to embody an idea. Hold that thought gently in your mind, as if balancing the wooden bird itself between your palms. Its wings stretch evenly to either side, neither too thick nor too thin, tapering with care. The body is smooth, carved from a single piece of sycamore, its surface worn by centuries of stillness. The tail juts straight down, vertical and flat. If you release it, and let it glide, you find that it does not simply fall. It sails forward through the air, tracing a path that feels strangely intentional. And it is here that dreamers begin to weave possibilities. Some have suggested the Saqqara bird was part of a model, perhaps a larger construction, a piece of an unknown mechanism, maybe even a glider designed to demonstrate the possibility of human flight. Could the ancient Egyptians have toyed with such concepts, not as science in the modern sense, but as wonder and imitation of nature? Could this little bird be a remnant of forgotten experiments, conducted on breezy days by the banks of the Nile, where papyrus boats drifted and fishermen cast their nets? There are, of course, skeptics. Many Egyptologists remind us that wood was a precious material in Egypt, and the choice of sycamore, often sacred, suggests ritual significance. The bird could simply have been a toy, a symbolic offering, or even a weather vane-like charm. Some argue that the tail, broken and eroded over centuries, may once have been more bird-like, and that what we see today is incomplete. They caution us not to impose modern fascination with flight upon an object from a culture that valued symbolism above engineering. And yet, there is that tail, that peculiar vertical plane, so unlike a bird's feathers, and so strikingly similar to the rudder of a glider. When replicas are built today, with the same proportions, they fly. They glide softly, held by air. Not perfectly, not like a modern aircraft, but enough to stir unease in the imagination. Was this coincidence? Was it deliberate? Or was it the playful accident of a craftsman whose hand carved with care, without ever intending to echo the physics of flight? In the stillness of night, as you drift toward sleep, you might imagine a scene from thousands of years ago. A boy in ancient Egypt, the son of a noble or a scribe, runs across a courtyard, his laughter echoing against the stone walls. In his hands he carries a little wooden bird, its wings spread. He lifts it high and lets it go, watching as it glides forward before sinking into the sand. His father watches, amused, and perhaps notes with curiosity how the toy moves more gracefully than expected. A craftsman, asked to repair it, considers its shape and perhaps wonders himself, what if one could build it larger? What if man could rise upon the winds, as falcons do, and sail across the sky? The Egyptians were a people bound to symbols, but also to dreams. Their gods bore wings, their souls were imagined as birds that flew from the body at death. To take flight was to transcend, to rise above the desert and the river, to escape mortality itself. The Saqqara bird, whether toy, charm, or experiment, carries within its small frame that eternal yearning. The yearning to rise, to glide, to slip free from the earth. It rests now in a glass case, seen by thousands, but understood by none. Its presence is quiet, almost overlooked amid the gold masks and stone statues that dominate the halls of the Cairo Museum. But if you stand before it, and let your gaze soften, you will sense it, an artifact not loud in grandeur, but whispering something far more elusive. Not the power of kings, but the curiosity of humanity, the desire to understand, to play, to dream. Perhaps it is not so important whether the Saqqara bird was truly a model of flight. Perhaps what matters is that it allows us, even now, to feel that same question stir within us. How does a bird glide? How might we follow? What secrets linger in the movements of air and feather? The Egyptians left us pyramids to awe, temples to endure, texts to puzzle, but in this little bird they may have left us something even more human, the trace of a dreamer's thought, caught forever in wood. And as you settle into rest, let the Saqqara bird drift through your imagination. See it gliding silently in the desert air, wings stretched against the evening sun, casting a small shadow on the golden sand below. It carries no answers, only questions. Questions that float like feathers in the breeze, gentle, endless, and eternal. Close your eyes and follow it. Let it lead you beyond the tombs, beyond the pyramids, beyond the desert, into a quiet where only the hush of wings remains. The Saqqara Bird glides on, and you drift with it, into sleep, into silence, into the mystery of dreams. The Tal-Qadi Stele. The story of the Tal-Qadi Stele begins quietly, as so many stories from the deep past often do. If you close your eyes and allow yourself to imagine the small island of Malta, floating in the central Mediterranean like a sunlit stone in a vast sea, you can begin to picture the setting where this enigmatic carved slab was once shaped, placed, and revered. Malta is small, only a few dozen kilometers across, yet it has always held outsized importance in human history. Traders, farmers, sailors, and settlers passed across its shores for thousands of years, leaving traces of their lives. And among these traces, the Tal-Qadi Stele stands out as one of the most mysterious. It is at first glance just a fragment, a piece of limestone carved with lines and symbols that seem at once purposeful and yet elusive. Unlike the finely chiseled hieroglyphs of Egypt or the carefully incised cuneiform of Mesopotamia, the markings on the Tal-Qadi Stele are abstract, geometric, and almost playful. They do not spell out words in a language we can recognize. They do not depict gods or kings or battles. Instead, they hint at patterns, cycles, perhaps even at the sky itself. To understand it, we need to sink ourselves into a world before writing, before history as we normally think of it. The Neolithic period of Malta, more than 5,000 years ago, was an age of stone temples, megalithic architecture, and a deep intimacy between people, land, and sky. The islanders who raised those temples lived in a rhythm with the seasons, with the rising and setting sun, with the changing moon, and with the shifting constellations. For them, the heavens were not distant, abstract objects of curiosity. The heavens were the grand clock by which life was measured. The Tal-Qadi Stele may very well be a fragment of that celestial awareness. Its carvings, carefully etched into stone, seem to show arcs and divisions, like slices of a wheel. Many researchers believe it represents a kind of star map, perhaps even one of the earliest attempts in Europe to portray the heavens in stone. Imagine that. 5,000 years ago, long before telescopes, long before compasses, long before charts, a small community on Malta might have gathered around a carved slab to align themselves with the sky. Close your eyes and picture the scene. The limestone temples of Malta, massive and ancient even to us, are still being constructed. Blocks taller than a person and heavier than a herd of oxen are dragged into place with ropes and sheer determination. Within these walls, rituals unfold, offerings are made, chants are sung, and symbols are carved. Outside, the stars wheel silently above, their patterns repeating with eternal patience. And somewhere within this tapestry of human devotion and cosmic wonder, the Tal-Qadi Stele was created. We cannot know the names of the people who carved it. We cannot know their exact purpose, but we can imagine their world in detail, because archaeology has given us glimpses. The Maltese temples were not random piles of stone. They were oriented toward celestial events. Some align with the solstices, marking the longest and shortest days of the year. Others seem tuned to the equinoxes, when day and night balance in delicate symmetry. The Tal-Qadi Stele, with its curious arcs, may have been a portable or ritual representation of this cosmic order, a stone calendar, or perhaps a guide for watching the heavens. The symbols carved upon it are deceptively simple: arcs, lines, divisions. Some interpret them as lunar phases, slices of the moon across a month. Others see stellar alignments, perhaps even representations of constellations. One theory suggests that the arcs correspond to the crescent moon moving across the night sky. Another proposes that the divisions show the path of stars as they rose and set over the horizon of Malta thousands of years ago. Each interpretation adds a layer of possibility, but none can claim certainty. The stone keeps its silence, and we are left with questions. And yet, the silence is soothing. For the Tal-Qadi Stele is not a puzzle meant to be solved hastily. It is, rather, a meditation in stone. To sit with it is to contemplate time itself, the rhythm of day and night, the slow dance of the seasons, the patient turning of the heavens. Picture, if you will, a quiet night on Malta 5,000 years ago. The air is still, touched by the salty breath of the sea. The horizon glows faintly as the last light of day fades, and above, one by one the stars emerge. A small group gathers around the temple, their firelight flickering against the massive stones. In their hands they hold a carved slab. Its markings glow faintly in the firelight, arcs and lines etched by careful tools. They tilt it, gesture to the sky, trace with their fingers the path of a crescent moon overhead. Perhaps they are teaching, perhaps they are honoring, perhaps they are simply watching, in awe of the vastness above. This is the world of the Tal-Qadi Stele. When it was discovered, in fragments, near the remains of the Tal-Qadi temple, it immediately captured the imagination of archaeologists. The temple itself had crumbled long before, its stones weathered and scattered. But among the rubble this carved piece stood out. It was not decoration, it was not merely art, it was a map, or a chart, or a symbol of something greater. Its preservation allowed us a window into a Neolithic mind, one not so different from ours in its yearning to understand the cosmos. For centuries, Malta has been a crossroads. Phoenicians, Romans, Arabs, Normans, Knights, all left their traces, but the Neolithic builders were there long before, carving their temples, aligning them to the sky, and leaving behind fragments like the Tal-Qadi Stele. The later civilizations brought writing, trade, armies, and politics, but those early islanders had something purer, an intimacy with stone, sun, and sky. Archaeologists studying the stele have often remarked on how unusual it is. There are few comparable artifacts in Europe from that time. Most Neolithic art is abstract in a different way: spirals, circles, zigzags, fertility figures, or geometric motifs. But here, the carvings seem purposeful in relation to the heavens. It suggests that Malta's temple builders were not only great architects but also keen observers of the cosmos. Their society may have invested immense effort into tracking the stars and marking sacred times. As you listen, you might begin to drift into the rhythms of their lives. Imagine the farming cycle: barley and wheat sown in small fields, harvested with stone sickles, herds of goats and sheep tended along the rocky slopes, clay pots filled with grain, stone ovens baking bread, and in the evenings, after work was done, eyes lifted to the night sky. For these islanders, the stars were a constant presence, their patterns etched in memory. The rising of a particular star might signal planting time. The setting of another might herald the coming rains. To carve these patterns into stone was to hold time itself in one's hand. The Tal-Qadi Stele, then, may have been a teaching tool, or a ritual object, or both. Its markings could be traced with a finger, its arcs compared to the sky above. Perhaps it was placed within the temple, aligned to catch the first light of dawn or the glow of the moon. Or perhaps it was carried by a priest or shaman, brought out at key times of the year to guide ceremonies. Its exact role is unknown, but its very existence tells us something crucial. The Neolithic Maltese were looking up, thinking, recording, and imagining. Over time, the temple of Tal-Qadi fell into ruin. Stones collapsed, earth covered them, and centuries passed. New peoples came, new gods, new empires. The carved slab lay hidden, waiting. When it was finally uncovered, it emerged into a world once again fascinated by the stars, but now with telescopes and charts and satellites. And yet, even with all our knowledge, the simple carvings of the Tal-Qadi Stele remain strangely captivating. They remind us that long before modern science, long before maps of galaxies and measurements of light years, human beings were already staring upward, already trying to capture the order of the cosmos in lines and symbols. To hold the stele, or even to see it today in Malta's museum, is to feel a thread stretching across 5,000 years. You can imagine the hand that carved it, the eyes that studied it, the voices that spoke around it. The past feels suddenly close, almost within reach. As you sink deeper into the flow of this story, let yourself drift into the slow, patient time of the Neolithic. The Tal-Qadi Stele does not rush, it does not shout. It whispers of cycles, of rhythms, of patterns repeating endlessly. The sun rises, the sun sets, the moon waxes and wanes, stars appear, fade, and return again. The people watch, carve, remember. Time moves like the sea around Malta, lapping gently, always there. The abstract symbols become a meditation, arcs become moons, divisions become seasons, lines become paths of stars, and you, listening now, become part of that same rhythm, breathing slowly, letting your thoughts align with the timeless turning of the sky. The stele is not just stone. It is memory, it is attention carved into rock. It is the human desire to notice, to record, to give shape to wonder. Its abstract symbols may never be translated in the way a language can be, but perhaps they were never meant to be. Perhaps they were simply meant to focus the mind, to anchor the gaze, to remind the community that above them the heavens turn, and within them, life flows in harmony. And so the Tal-Qadi Stele endures, quiet and patient, just as it has for millennia. Its symbols invite us not to solve but to breathe, to imagine, and to join a lineage of watchers who, for as long as humans have lived, have always looked up at the night sky and wondered. The Ica Stones. Beneath the dry skies of southern Peru, where the desert seems endless and the wind carries with it the hush of millennia, there lies a mystery unlike any other. A collection of stones, worn smooth by time, yet etched with images so unusual, so baffling, that they seem to speak not just of history, but of worlds forgotten, or perhaps worlds that never were. They are called the Ica Stones, named after the small Peruvian town near where they were first brought into the light. Some say they are relics of an ancient civilization that predated recorded history. Others claim they are clever forgeries, born not from antiquity, but from the hands of local artisans seeking to amuse or deceive. And yet, when you look at them, when you allow your eyes to trace the careful carvings of men, women, strange beasts, and even dinosaurs, you cannot help but wonder. Tonight, let us wander into the desert of Peru. Let us sit with the quiet sands and the muted stars. Let us turn one of these curious stones over in our hands and allow the images upon it to guide us into stories carved in silence, stories of lives lived or imagined in a world we may never fully understand. The town of Ica itself sits not far from the famous Nazca lines, those enormous geoglyphs spread across the desert plains. Already, this land holds within it an air of the mysterious, of civilizations that sought to leave their mark upon the world in vast and puzzling ways. The stones, however, are not vast. They are small, palm-sized to boulder-sized, rounded and smooth, usually made of andesite or other hard rocks, their surfaces etched with images that would not be expected from any ancient hand. Imagine picking one up. The stone feels heavy, cool, resting with a comforting weight against your palm. Its surface, though smoothed by age, holds shallow grooves carved with care. The grooves catch the faint desert light, and suddenly you see a scene. Sometimes it is a man in a headdress. Sometimes it is a group of figures gathered around what looks like a telescope or a surgical table. Sometimes, more strangely, it is a dinosaur, a stegosaurus, a triceratops, a long-necked sauropod grazing. These images whisper questions into the silence. Could people of long ago have known of creatures that vanished millions of years before their time? Or are these simply clever imaginings carved in modern times to provoke awe? The story of the stones begins in the mid-20th century, when a Peruvian physician named Dr. Javier Cabrera Darquea received one as a birthday gift. The stone, small and dark, bore the carved image of what looked like a fish, but not an ordinary fish. It was a species he knew from fossil records, one that should not have been known by any pre-Columbian culture. The gift intrigued him. He began to collect more. Over time, thousands upon thousands passed into his possession, until he had amassed a library of images on stone, numbering in the tens of thousands. Inside his museum, which still stands in Ica, row upon row of these stones are displayed. Each shelf, each cabinet, each corner filled with dark, rounded shapes, upon which gleam strange pale carvings. Walking through, you might feel the sensation of being surrounded by voices, not loud voices, but murmurs of imagery, each stone carrying with it a story, a possibility, a vision. Some depict medical scenes, doctors performing what looks like heart transplants, brain surgery, blood transfusions. Others seem to show maps of continents in different configurations, as though drawn before the shifting of tectonic plates. And of course, the most famous are those with dinosaurs, humans riding them, hunting them, walking among them as though in some distant coexistence. The rational mind resists such visions. Dinosaurs and humans never shared the earth, not in the way these stones suggest. Heart transplants and complex surgeries belong to the modern world, not the Neolithic. Maps of Atlantis-like continents sound more like myth than memory. And yet there they are, carved with patient hands into stone. Critics dismiss them as hoaxes, and indeed, evidence suggests that local farmers in the 20th century carved many of them, using dental drills and knives to etch the figures, then artificially aging the stones in dung or river mud. In fact, some of these artisans even confessed, and yet, others insist that not all the stones are so easily dismissed. Some appear far older, with carvings worn down not by trickery, but by genuine time. Here, in the liminal space between truth and fabrication, the stones breathe their mystery. Perhaps the hoaxes were layered upon older relics, perhaps imagination and invention fused with something more ancient, more authentic. Or perhaps the stones, all of them, are inventions, and yet even inventions tell us something deep about human longing, about our desire to connect with lost knowledge, about our yearning to believe that the past was grander, stranger, richer than the textbooks allow. Let us imagine for a while, not with the skeptic's sharp edge, but with the dreamer's soft gaze. Let us imagine the stones are what they claim to be, records of a lost world. You pick one up, brush away the dust, and see a man in profile, his hand resting on a scalpel-like tool. Around him are others, holding down a patient upon a table. The carving is crude, yet clear. Could it be surgery? Perhaps. What kind of people could carve such knowledge into stone? Were they doctors of a forgotten civilization? Or perhaps shamans, blending ritual with healing, their art half magic, half medicine? Another stone shows an enormous reptile, plates along its back. A stegosaurus, unmistakable. Its head is bowed, grazing, while small human figures stand nearby. Are they hunting it, riding it, or simply recording its presence as part of their world? If the stone is genuine, it suggests a rewriting of all history, but if it is false, then it suggests something equally fascinating, that modern carvers in a remote desert town somehow intuited the shapes of creatures most would never have seen outside of textbooks. Another stone, larger, smooth, shows lines crisscrossing like rivers or borders. At first glance, it looks like a map. Some researchers believe it depicts the continents before they drifted to their current places, long before mankind should have had the knowledge to imagine such a thing. Could it be memory, passed down through untold generations? Or is it simply the projection of human imagination, carving guesses into stone, much like we might sketch our dreams in the margins of a notebook? And yet, as you wander further into this imagined library of stones, their number overwhelms you. Tens of thousands. Could one man or one village carve so many in a single lifetime? Could forgers keep pace with such abundance? Or does the sheer quantity itself speak of something older, something layered across centuries? The desert around Ica keeps its secrets well. Its dry sands have preserved mummies, geoglyphs, pottery, entire cultures. It is not impossible that stones too could be preserved, waiting for hands to uncover them. But the desert also invites invention. Tourists come, seeking marvels, and locals oblige, carving, aging, selling. The truth becomes buried beneath layers of need, belief, prophet, and myth. Perhaps the greatest secret of the Ica stones is not whether they are real or fake, but how deeply they stir the human spirit. To hold one is to feel a story pressed into your palm, a story that refuses to be silenced by the passage of time. And in the stillness of night, as the desert stars shimmer faintly overhead, one can imagine a different kind of world, a world where humans walked alongside creatures long vanished, a world where healers carved their wisdom into unyielding rock, a world where stone became page, and page became legend. The Ica stones remain in their museum, resting silently. Tourists walk past them, scholars debate them, skeptics dismiss them, believers defend them, and yet the stones themselves do not speak. They simply are. Heavy, rounded, engraved with mysteries, waiting for the next hand to lift them, for the next set of eyes to dream through them. So we leave them there, resting in the desert silence, not explained, not resolved, but alive with possibilities. The Quimbaya Airplanes, high in the mountains of Colombia, where the Andes roll into valleys lush with rivers and thick with forest, traces of an ancient people remain, sometimes in gold, sometimes in stone, sometimes only in the echo of legend. The Quimbaya were master craftsmen of the metal that glitters like sunlight, working it into shapes so precise and so beautiful that their skill astonished those who stumbled upon their treasures centuries later. Among their creations, small enough to fit in the palm of a hand, are a series of curious objects that whisper of mystery. These golden figures look like birds or insects, yet they hold angles, edges, and proportions that make some pause and wonder. Are they animals, or could they be models of machines? The Quimbaya Airplanes, as they are now called, are just a few inches long, tiny golden artifacts, no bigger than the trinkets one might keep in a pocket. But their triangular wings, upright tails, and tapered fuselages seem uncannily like modern aircraft, though they were made more than 1,000 years ago, long before men dreamed of leaving the ground in powered flight. To some, they are merely stylized birds, a culture's attempt to capture the elegance of wings in motion. To others, they are evidence, whispers of a knowledge lost, or even a sign that the ancients glimpsed technologies that should not have existed. The valley of the Cauca River, where the Quimbaya flourished, was rich with life. Tropical forests spread out like a green sea, and rivers carried the voices of waterfalls down to the fertile plains. It was here that artisans shaped gold into masks, vessels, ornaments, and offerings. Gold was not currency for them, it was sacred. It shone with the energy of the sun, held life's brilliance in a solid form. When they molded it, hammered it, and cast it into intricate pieces, they were not simply creating wealth, they were channeling meaning. Among the ornaments that survive are spirals, frogs, jaguars, bats, and birds. Each had symbolic weight. The frog leapt between water and land, a bridge of worlds. The jaguar prowled the night with strength and mystery. The bat was a messenger of caves and shadows. Birds were especially important, for they cut across the skies with freedom humans could only watch. In the jungle canopy, parrots flashed bright green and scarlet. Hummingbirds darted like living jewels. Raptors rode the wind in wide arcs, and herons stalked still waters with patient steps. Yet the Quimbaya golden birds are not quite like these creatures. Their wings do not curve like a parrot's or sweep like an eagle's. Their tails are upright, rigid, like fins. Their noses taper like the front of a vessel designed to slice through air. The first of these artifacts were unearthed not by scholars but by chance, as locals turned the soil of ancient tombs. Many were looted, traded, and carried away, long before archaeology gave them careful context. By the time museums began cataloging them, they had been scattered, with little record of exactly where they were found or in what conditions. Yet their forms were undeniable. A row of them in a display case gleams like a fleet of miniature craft, each pointed and aerodynamic. One of the most famous rests in Bogotá's Gold Museum, its golden surface polished by centuries. It has triangular wings that slope back in a way eerily reminiscent of modern delta-wing jets. Its tail is tall, vertical, like the fin of an airplane. There is no beak, no eyes, no feathers marked, just smooth lines, suggestive more of engineered design than natural form. When engineers saw these figures in the 20th century, some were intrigued. Two German aircraft experts, in the 1990s, scaled up the designs into larger models. They added engines, tested aerodynamics, and found that the shapes could in fact fly. The little golden birds worked as prototypes, their balance and contours fit for lift. For some, this was proof that the ancients had more than symbolic intent, that they had glimpsed or been shown principles of flight. Skeptics argue otherwise. They point out that cultures often stylized animals. A bird could be rendered with straight lines, a tail exaggerated, wings simplified. The Quimbaya may have seen fish, insects, or even flying squirrels, and abstracted them into golden charms. Goldsmiths may have chosen symmetry and simplicity over realism. To imagine them as airplanes, critics say, is to project modern ideas backward, to see machines where none existed. But the mystery remains. Why do they look so different from other bird representations of the time? Why such precision of angles and symmetry, if the intent was only symbolic? Why tails upright? Why no eyes or feathers? Why do they resemble no known species exactly, yet align so closely with aerodynamic efficiency? The Gold Museum halls are quiet, yet in the glass cases the little objects glow. Tourists lean closer, squinting, whispering. Some see hummingbirds, frozen mid-dive, others see tiny jets, waiting for takeoff. The objects, mute and gleaming, give no answer. Let us imagine the world in which they were made. Picture a Quimbaya artisan sitting cross-legged by the firelight of a clay house. Around him, the night hums with cicadas. He has panned flecks of gold from riverbeds, melted them in crucibles of clay and charcoal, poured them into molds carved from beeswax. The metal cools, takes shape. He polishes it with stone, smooth as water. His hands know the weight of gold. Its softness under pressure. Its glow in light. What was in his mind as he formed the wing, the tail, the body? Did he look at a bird wheeling overhead, at a bat flickering past, at a fish cutting water? Or did he imagine something beyond, some shape glimpsed in dream or vision? For ancient cultures, vision could be revelation. Shamans journeyed in trance, saw beings with wings of fire, chariots of sky, serpents that flew. In ceremony, one might inhale smoke or chew leaves that opened the mind. Shapes seen in altered states became symbols in art. Could the airplanes be born not of observation, but of vision? Mystical craft that flew in the skies of imagination. Colombia's valleys are full of secrets. The jungle hides temples beneath roots and leaves. Rivers conceal stories in their depths. In this setting, the Quimbaya thrived for centuries, leaving behind only fragments of their world. They had no writing that survives, no codices or scrolls to explain their symbols. Their gold is the voice that endures, but gold is silent. It shows but does not tell. As the centuries rolled, their world was shattered. The Spanish came in the 16th century, hunting gold with hunger unmatched. They melted ornaments into ingots, destroyed tombs, erased lineages. The Quimbaya as a people dwindled, their traditions broken. What survives are pieces, shards of ceramic, tools of stone, and the brilliant golden artifacts that resist time. The airplanes have become a puzzle not just of archaeology but of imagination. They are cited in books about ancient astronauts, about lost civilizations, about technologies hidden and forgotten. They are also displayed in sober museum contexts, labeled as zoomorphic, animal forms without mystery. The truth may lie somewhere between, for if they are birds, why these shapes? If they are symbolic, why so mechanical? And if they are indeed echoes of something once seen, what could that have been? Did the Quimbaya watch giant dragonflies skim the rivers? Did they study the glide of fish across waves? Or could they, as some wonder, have seen more, something foreign in their skies, remembered and reshaped in gold? Night in the Andes is long, the stars sharp above. Imagine a Quimbaya elder looking upward, seeing constellations mirrored in rivers, believing the sky to be full of pathways and travelers. If one saw a comet flare, a meteor streak, would he not see a craft of light? If one dreamed of a golden bird not of this earth, would he not cast it in gold? The golden airplanes remain, weighty yet light, small yet vast in meaning. To hold one is to hold a question unanswered for 1,000 years. And perhaps that is why they linger in the mind. Some objects explain themselves. A pot is a pot, a mask is a mask. But these artifacts hover between categories. They are not fully bird, not fully fish, not fully insect. They are not quite any natural form. They are precise enough to provoke, ambiguous enough to evade. They rest in that fertile space where imagination thrives. The museum lights dim at closing. The cases are locked. Yet behind glass, the little golden shapes wait, their wings, frozen, gleam faintly as if they might move given the chance. Silent, they hold their secret. And so, whether they are birds or airplanes, visions or memories, charms or models, they continue to fly, not in air, but in thought. They are the Quimbaya Airplanes, tiny vessels of mystery, carrying questions across centuries, golden enigmas that refuse to land. The Kalambo Wooden Structure. Far to the south of the African continent, where a great river winds and tumbles through ravines and escarpments, there lies a place that hums with memory older than words. The Kalambo River, restless and enduring, carves its course along the borderlands of Zambia and Tanzania. At its end, the river plunges in a vast curtain of white, a waterfall second only to Victoria Falls in height. Kalambo Falls has always been a spectacle, a voice of water speaking into the gorge below, a rhythm of nature that no living person could silence. Yet what lies near that river, hidden beneath layers of earth and time, is a discovery that challenges the way we think about ourselves. Among the mud and sand at the river's edge, archaeologists found wood. Yes, wood, but not in the casual sense of a broken branch or rotted log. This was something far stranger. Two great timbers, cut, shaped, and joined together with intention. Not merely firewood, not driftwood washed downstream, but construction. Wood worked by human hands, or at least by the hands of ancestors we scarcely recognize as human. This wooden structure, preserved in the oxygen-starved soils near the Kalambo River, has been dated back nearly 500,000 years. 500,000 years. A stretch of time so vast that words begin to lose their meaning. Imagine it, an age before pyramids, before written symbols, before Homo sapiens as we know them had fully taken shape. It is older than memory, older than myth, and yet here it rests, the oldest known wooden construction in the world. When we think of ancient history, we think of stone tools, stone temples, stone walls, enduring monuments that resist decay. But wood tells another story, a quieter one. It does not last unless fate intervenes. It returns to the soil, becoming humus and dust. For a wooden structure to survive across 500,000 years, conditions must be perfect, as if time itself conspired to keep it safe. At Kalambo, the wet, waterlogged ground denied oxygen to the microbes that would normally consume wood. And so the structure endured, waiting for us to notice. The timbers were shaped, one laid atop another, with a carved notch that allowed them to fit together. It is a detail so simple, so small, yet so revolutionary. Joinery, the sign of minds that planned, that shaped the natural world into something useful, something lasting. This was no accident, it was the spark of architecture. The suggestion that long before the first stone city, before the first farmer sowed a field, beings were already thinking of how to shape their surroundings, not merely surviving, but designing. And here is where the imagination begins to wander. What was it? What did it serve? Was it the foundation of a platform, raised above damp earth to keep belongings dry? Was it part of a shelter, a place where families gathered, safe from the rains? Was it perhaps a walkway across boggy soil, the start of a bridge, or a pier along the river's edge? Its true purpose, like so many things at the dawn of time, is lost. But the intention is there. It whispers through the cut marks, through the way the timbers nest into each other. Someone thought of this. Someone made it happen. Picture the scene 500,000 years ago. The river still flowed, the waterfall still thundered. Around it stretched a landscape of forest and savanna, alive with creatures both familiar and strange. Elephants roamed, though perhaps not quite the same elephants we know today. Big cats prowled in the tall grass, antelope darted at shadows, and near the river, a small group of hominins worked with their hands. Perhaps they were Homo heidelbergensis, perhaps another ancestor, creatures not yet fully us, yet far from the wild animals that preceded them. They gathered timbers, maybe felled by storms, maybe cut with stone tools. They shaped them with patience, perhaps with fire to soften the fibers, perhaps with blows from hand axes. And then, with vision, they placed them together, a platform, a base, a step toward something greater. In this quiet act of construction, we glimpse the roots of architecture, of engineering, of civilization itself. The Kalambo Wooden Structure is a ghostly reminder that progress did not leap suddenly with the rise of cities. It crept, slowly, across millennia. These timbers are like the heartbeat of that slow dawn, preserved in silence. They remind us that long before written records, long before even cave paintings, there were builders. And so, as you let your thoughts drift, imagine the life of those builders. The days were not measured by clocks, but by the movement of the sun across the sky. Morning light spilling over the gorge, illuminating the mist of the falls. Midday heat pressing down, driving people into the shade of trees. Evening fires crackling, their smoke rising into stars unpolluted by modern haze. At the edge of the river, they worked with their hands. Each strike of stone on wood echoed with intent. Perhaps there was no word for construction, but there was a vision nonetheless. They could see in their minds what was not yet there. They could see the log, transformed. And that is the essence of humanity, vision carried into matter. Think of the patience required. A log is heavy. To drag it, to shape it, to notch it, so that it rests snugly against another. It required persistence, cooperation, and imagination. These were not simple tasks. They suggest minds that planned ahead, that solved problems, that dreamed. And what of the structure once it stood? Did children play upon it, their laughter carried away by the rush of water? Did hunters rest their spears upon it after long days? Did families gather in its shade, telling stories that no one remembers? The wood does not tell us. It holds only the silence of centuries. But in that silence, our minds wander, filling the void with possibility. 500,000 years, that number is almost impossible to grasp. Consider this. If you trace history back 10 generations, you stand among people who lived in the 1700s. 20 generations, and you are in the medieval world. Go back 1,000 generations, and you are among hunter-gatherers painting caves. But the Kalambo structure lies tens of thousands of generations deeper, a chasm of time. And yet across that chasm, the intention is still visible. It is humbling. It is as if the ancestors left us a message, not in words, not in symbols, but in the language of craft. We were here. We built. We dreamed. The Kalambo Falls themselves must have been a place of wonder even then. The roar of water is timeless. Imagine the mist rising, the rainbows cast in sunlight, the endless spray cooling the air. Such a place would have drawn people, just as it draws travelers today. A gathering place, a landmark, a site of memory, and near it, the wooden structure, quiet, purposeful, enduring. Some archaeologists suggest it may have been part of a raised platform to store food, keeping it safe from animals and rot. Others imagine it as the base of a shelter, protecting people from wind and rain. Still others propose it may have served as a walkway or pier. None can say for certain. What is certain is that it was deliberate, and that deliberation is what makes it extraordinary. Think of wood itself, the material chosen. It is warm, pliable, alive in a way that stone is not. To shape it is to negotiate with nature, to feel the grain and the resistance. Those ancient builders must have known wood intimately, the way it bends, the way it cracks, the way it endures. They chose it not only because it was there, but because it could be shaped to serve. In the quiet rhythm of their work, we find echoes of our own. Every house, every bridge, every beam that supports a roof. These are the children of that first experiment. Civilization is built not on sudden inventions, but on long, unbroken threads of trial, error, and imagination. The Kalambo structure is one of the first knots in that thread. And yet, when the people who built it were gone, the forest reclaimed it. Leaves fell, rains came, soil covered it. For hundreds of thousands of years, it lay hidden, unseen, unknown. Generations lived and died above it, never suspecting its presence. Kingdoms rose and fell, oceans crossed by ships, cities of glass and steel emerged. All while, beneath the soil at Kalambo, the ancient timbers slept, until at last, we found them. And in finding them we glimpse a truth, that memory is not always kept in words or art. Sometimes it is kept in wood. As you let this story wash over you, imagine yourself beside that river, the roar of the falls in the distance, the hum of insects in the air, the smell of wet earth. You stand upon ancient ground where builders once shaped wood into meaning. The air is heavy with history, though the forest seems quiet. Beneath your feet, the timbers lie, whispering their story through time. And slowly, as you drift in thought, the boundary between then and now dissolves. You see the builders at work, their hands steady, their movements patient. You hear the sound of stone striking wood, the low murmur of voices. The river flows on, indifferent yet eternal, and you realize that though they are gone, their work remains. Their intention, their vision, endures. The Kalambo Wooden Structure is not merely archaeology. It is memory carved into timber, carried across 500,000 years. It is proof that even before history, before art, before words, there were builders, and in their work, we see ourselves. The Olmec Were-Jaguar figurines. Deep in the mists of time, long before the rise of the great Aztec Empire, and even centuries before the first stones of the Mayan pyramids were raised toward the heavens, another civilization thrived in the lush tropical lowlands of what is today Mexico. Their world was green, humid, and alive with rivers, swamps, and fertile soil, a landscape that nurtured both crops and mysteries. This civilization, often described as the mother culture of Mesoamerica, is known to us as the Olmec. The Olmec left no great written records that we can decipher, no chronicles inscribed on stone that clearly explain who they were or what they believed. Yet what they did leave behind are objects so curious, so haunting, that they have puzzled scholars for over a century. Among their most enigmatic creations are the figurines known as the Were-Jaguars. These small carvings, crafted from jade, serpentine, basalt, and sometimes ceramic, bear features that are not quite human, not entirely feline, but something in between. The figurines often depict beings with downturned mouths, almond-shaped eyes, and a cleft running across their heads, as though they had been split by some primordial force. Their bodies may be squat, powerful, or strangely childlike, but always they convey an aura of otherworldly presence, as if they belong both to the human realm and to a hidden supernatural one. To wander through the halls of a museum that houses these figurines is to feel a sense of hushed mystery. The jade gleams with a polished glow, as if it has trapped within it the memory of ceremonies, chants, and offerings performed thousands of years ago. The stones are cool to the touch, yet they radiate something deeper, a trace of belief, of awe, of connection to forces that still remain unknown. Scholars have tried, time and again, to decode the meaning of these figures. Some say they represent shamanic transformation, the moment when a human, through trance or ritual, became a jaguar in spirit and power. Others suggest they are the offspring of mythic unions, half human and half divine. Still others wonder if they were symbols of fertility, rain, and the cycles of nature, embodiments of the jaguar as a being that prowled not only the forests but the very heart of Olmec cosmology. To understand the Were-Jaguar figurines, one must first imagine the world of the Olmec. Their villages and ceremonial centers were alive between 1500 and 400 BCE, a span of over 1,000 years. They built colossal heads from basalt, weighing tons, each one a unique portrait of rulers or warriors whose names we will never know. They carved altars that doubled as thrones, inscribed with images of ancestors and deities. And in their ritual spaces, they placed offerings of jade, blood, and figurines, as if to anchor the human world to the unseen. The jaguar, in this world, was more than an animal. It was a predator, the silent hunter of the night, strong, graceful, and fierce. Its spotted coat seemed patterned with shadows and stars, as though it belonged to both earth and sky. To the Olmec, the jaguar was a symbol of rain and fertility, a creature that could cross between worlds. In caves, which were seen as mouths of the earth, jaguars were imagined to dwell, guardians of water and life. When the Olmec carved the Were-Jaguar, they were not merely shaping stone, they were giving form to the mysteries of transformation. The human body merging with feline traits spoke of altered states of being, of shamans entering the realm of spirits. The cleft on the forehead may have been a mark of divine lightning, a split that allowed supernatural power to enter. The downturned mouth, strange and haunting, may have echoed cries of birth or echoes of storm clouds gathering. Some of the figurines are small enough to hold in the palm of a hand, as though they were meant to be carried, touched, and spoken to during rituals. Others were buried in caches, alongside jade axes and masks, suggesting they were gifts to the gods or to the ancestors. Each figurine seems to whisper something incomplete, leaving only fragments of a forgotten language for us to piece together. Archaeologists have found Were-Jaguar figures across several Olmec sites, San Lorenzo, La Venta, and Tres Zapotes among them. At La Venta, one of the great ceremonial centers, large offerings of jade figurines were carefully arranged in patterns, then covered over with earth, hidden until rediscovered thousands of years later. Standing over such a find today, one imagines the solemn ceremonies that might have taken place, priests chanting, incense rising, rain falling softly in the jungle. The material itself, jade, was not merely decorative. To the Olmec, jade was precious, more valuable than gold. It was green like young maize, like the renewal of plants after the rain. When polished, it seemed to glow with an inner light, as though alive. To carve the Were-Jaguar into jade was to unite symbol and substance, belief and beauty. But still, the question remains, why the jaguar? Why this strange hybrid form, repeated again and again with subtle variations? Some researchers propose a myth, a story now lost, of a union between a jaguar and a woman, their offspring becoming a race of powerful beings. In this interpretation, the figurines are portraits of those divine children, beings who stood between gods and mortals. Others view the figures as depictions of shamans, individuals who entered trances through dance, fasting, or the use of sacred plants, and who felt themselves take on jaguar form in the darkness of ritual. The Were-Jaguar, then, may not be one thing but many. It may be myth, ritual, power, and symbol, all at once. Like water slipping through the fingers, its meaning changes depending on how one tries to grasp it. Perhaps that is why it still fascinates us, because it resists a single explanation, remaining as fluid and mysterious as the jungle rain. When we look at the Were-Jaguar today, in quiet museum halls far from the Olmec swamps and forests, we are seeing more than stone. We are seeing the outline of a worldview. We are seeing how an ancient people tried to connect with the forces that gave them life, fed their crops, and shaped their destinies. We are seeing echoes of rainstorms, whispers of jungle cats, the shimmer of jade caught in the firelight. Close your eyes and imagine an Olmec craftsman, thousands of years ago. He sits on a woven mat, a block of jade before him. With stone tools and sand, he begins to carve. Hours stretch into days. Slowly, a face emerges. Not human, not feline, but something in between. The cleft forehead takes shape, the downturned mouth, the almond eyes. He polishes the figure until it gleams, holding it up to the light. Perhaps he whispers a prayer. Perhaps he offers a drop of blood, binding himself to the spirit within the stone. This figurine will outlast him. It will outlast his children, his city, his people. It will wait, buried beneath the soil, for thousands of years, and when it is found again, its mystery will remain intact, still puzzling, still haunting. The Olmec Were-Jaguar figurines remind us that the human imagination has always been vast, always reaching beyond the visible. They show us that belief can be carved into stone, yet remain fluid, ambiguous, and powerful, and as we gaze upon them thousands of years later, we too are invited into that ambiguity, into that dreamlike space where human and animal, myth and reality, life and spirit, all blur into one. The Ubaid lizard figurines, and the soft stillness of a forgotten age, when the first rivers of human memory still ran fresh across the Mesopotamian plain. There lived a people whose stories rarely find their way into the modern imagination. We know them not by the vastness of their empires, nor by the thunder of kings' decrees, but by faint traces of clay, sun-baked and buried deep beneath the shifting sands of Iraq. These are the people of Ubaid, an ancient culture older than the temples of Ur, older than the ziggurats that rose like stairways to the heavens, older even than the tales we think of as the beginning of civilization. And among their fragile remnants, among the shards of their pots and the quiet outlines of their villages, lie figures that should not exist at all, the Ubaid lizard figurines. When one first encounters the name, it might seem playful, almost whimsical, lizard figurines as if carved by children's hands. But the reality is stranger, heavier, more enduring. These are statues of beings with elongated heads, narrow slitted eyes, and bodies that are both human and not human. Some cradle infants in their long clawed arms. Some stand upright, adorned with ornaments or crowns. Their mouths taper into pointed snouts, their torsos unmistakably humanoid. They are not idols of animals, nor of gods in any familiar form. They are something else, frozen in clay by hands that lived 7,000 years ago. The story begins in the archaeological sites of southern Iraq, at places such as Tel Ubaid, Eridu, and Long before these names became cities that hummed with kingship, they were small settlements by the water, villages of reed huts and clay walls. The Ubaid people thrived between 6500 and 3800 BCE, cultivating fields beside the Euphrates, herding cattle, fishing in the rivers that threaded the land. They left behind painted pottery in green and brown tones, geometric patterns that echo the rhythms of woven mats, of water rippling under sun. These were the foundations upon which Mesopotamian civilization was built. Yet for reasons no historian can fully explain, this quiet culture also shaped something otherworldly with their hands. It is easy to picture an archaeologist brushing away sand, uncovering first a sliver of clay, perhaps a delicate nose, sharp and angular. Then, as more earth is swept aside, the long eyes emerge, narrow, reptilian, unsettling in their gaze. The body follows, slender and strangely human in posture. The discovery does not fit easily into the expected story of early Mesopotamia. It lingers, demanding questions for which there are no ready answers. Some figurines are male, others female. Some wear what appears to be headgear or adornments resembling crowns. The females, in particular, are depicted holding infants, yet even these infants bear the same reptilian features, as though the artists wished to portray a lineage not of human descent, but of a race apart, with families, hierarchies, and roles. The detail is precise enough that scholars cannot dismiss it as mere abstraction. The figurines stand as deliberate creations, each one shaped with intention. To gaze upon them is to fall into a kind of trance, wondering, who or what were these lizard beings? Were they gods the Ubaid worshipped? Spirits of river and marsh? Symbols of transformation, of fertility, of rebirth? Or were they memories, distorted across time of encounters the Ubaid people had with beings beyond the veil of ordinary life? The figurines are small, only a few inches in height, yet their presence is immense. They carry a silence that is louder than any inscription, for the Ubaid left no written language to explain them, no tablets accompany them, no hymns carved into stone. They stand mute, their slitted eyes forever open, their clay mouths forever sealed. To truly appreciate their mystery, one must step back and consider the Ubaid world itself. Imagine the flat expanse of southern Iraq, thousands of years ago. The marshes stretched endlessly, alive with reeds swaying in the wind, water birds crying overhead, and the distant lowing of cattle. The sun scorched the earth by day, and the stars wheeled in endless clarity by night. Life was hard, yet stable. The Ubaid built houses of mud brick, crafted elegant pottery, and organized their villages with a quiet sophistication that hinted at what was to come. They cultivated fields, tended goats, and fished the marshes, their lives moving with the rhythm of the rivers. And somewhere among these ordinary labors, they created beings that did not belong to their world. Why? Some scholars have suggested that the lizard figurines were fertility symbols. The large eyes, the pronounced heads, the emphasis on female figures holding children, these could represent the power of birth and the continuity of life. Perhaps the reptilian features were simply stylizations, abstractions of human form. Yet the problem persists. Why the consistency? Across the different figurines found at different sites, the lizard-like features remain deliberate and unmistakable. The artists could easily have made human faces. Instead, they chose otherwise. Others whisper of myths we no longer remember, of local deities whose forms were lost when later Mesopotamian pantheons rose to dominance. Perhaps the lizard figurines represent river gods, marsh spirits, protectors of fertility tied to the cycles of water and land. In such a world, where floods could both nurture and destroy, where survival depended on the flow of rivers, it would make sense to imagine beings who embodied that dual nature, cold as reptiles, yet essential to life. And then there are those who let their minds wander further. To them the figurines are not mere symbols, but evidence. Faint, tantalizing evidence of contact with beings beyond our understanding. Ancient astronaut theories speak of reptilian visitors who came to early Mesopotamia, shaping human culture in its infancy. The figurines, they say, are not idols of imagination but portraits of memory, attempts to capture in clay what the Ubaid had seen with their own eyes. The infants suggest not worship but intermingling, a narrative of hybrid offspring, a story of human and other intertwined. Whether one entertains such theories or dismisses them, the figurines refuse to settle into certainty. They belong to that rare class of artifacts that defy classification, too strange to be ignored, too ambiguous to be explained. They live in the liminal space between history and myth, a whisper from an age before writing, before kingship, before the world we know began. Picture yourself in the dim interior of an Ubaid home, 7,000 years ago. The air is warm, carrying the smell of clay, of reeds drying in the sun. In the corner, an artisan shapes a figure from wet earth, his fingers pressing gently, deliberately. The snout lengthens, the eyes narrow into slits. Slowly, a lizard-faced being emerges. Around the artisan, his family goes about daily life. Children playing with reed toys, a woman grinding grain, the sounds of cattle drifting from the fields outside. The figurine is left to dry, then placed carefully in a niche, or buried in the floor, or carried to a shrine. What meaning did it hold? Was it protection, reverence, memory? We will never know. What we do know is that the Ubaid figurines were not isolated oddities. They appear in different contexts, at multiple sites. They are part of a pattern, a quiet insistence across centuries that such beings mattered. And yet when the Ubaid culture gave way to the Uruk period, when writing first appeared, and cities rose in full splendor, the figurines vanished. No more lizard faces gazing from the clay. No more hybrid infants in their mother's arms. The tradition was left behind, abandoned or forgotten, as though it had never been. That silence is almost more haunting than the figurines themselves. Why did the Ubaid stop making them? Was the memory no longer relevant? Was the worship replaced, suppressed, erased by new powers? Or was the presence that inspired them gone, withdrawn, leaving only clay echoes behind? The figurines, fragile and mute, wait for us to ask these questions. They wait in museum cases, behind glass, their eyes staring forever into a future they could not have imagined. When we look upon them, we look not only at the clay, but at ourselves, at the vastness of human imagination, at the mysteries that lie beneath the surface of history, at the possibility that our ancestors lived in a world stranger than we can easily accept. The Ubaid lizard figurines are not answers, they are doorways. They invite us into a space where the ordinary and the impossible blur, where sleep and waking share the same edge, where the past whispers in voices that are neither fully human nor fully gone, and so we linger, drifting deeper into that silence, listening for echoes from the marshes, from the hands of forgotten artisans, from the eyes of clay beings that look at us still. The Lothagam Pillar Tomb. There is a place in the northern reaches of Lake Turkana, where the earth stretches wide and flat, where the sun rises in liquid gold, and the wind whispers across the dry soil, that holds a secret older than any pyramid, older than written word, older than memory itself. It is a place of stone, of human hands shaping monuments that endure far beyond their creators' lifetimes. This is Lothagam, a site of quiet mystery, and at its heart stands the Pillar Tomb, an enigma of antiquity, a place where the dead rest beneath stones taller than men, where generations of people converge to honor those who came before them. Imagine walking across the flat, scrub-strewn landscape. the air warm but dry, the long shadows of the sun stretching across your feet, the cry of distant birds echoing over the horizon. You come upon a rise in the ground, subtle at first, a gentle mound that becomes more distinct with each step. There is nothing else in sight, no trees, no water, just the wide openness of the Turkana plain. Yet as you approach, the mound reveals its secrets. Stones, massive and deliberate, rise from the earth. Some are arranged in circles, others lean against one another, forming a rough enclosure. And at the center, taller than the rest, a pillar stands, carved and placed with a care that defies comprehension, a testament to hands long vanished. This is the Lothagam pillar tomb, constructed some 7,000 years ago, during a time when the world around it was radically different. The climate was wetter, the lake shores richer, and communities thrived in small settlements scattered across the plains. These people were herders, fishermen and foragers, living in harmony with the land and the rhythms of the seasons. Yet even in this simple existence, they sought to create something lasting, something monumental, a space to honor their dead, and perhaps to communicate with forces they could not see but deeply felt. The tomb is not large in comparison to the pyramids of Egypt, but its significance is immense. Unlike pyramids built by great states, this monument arose from a community of ordinary people, working together across generations. The pillars were quarried, shaped, and transported, each one a labor of devotion and precision. Imagine the collective effort, the conversations of those who lifted stone, the songs that accompanied the work, the hands blistered but steady, as each pillar found its place. Some pillars are tall and slender, others squat and wide, each chosen for its weight, its shape, its presence. Together they form a silent architecture of memory. Inside the tomb, archaeologists have found the remains of hundreds of individuals, carefully placed within the stone enclosure. They are not haphazardly thrown into the earth. Each body tells a story. A person buried with care, their bones aligned with subtle intention, their position suggesting rituals now lost to time. Some were wrapped in animal hides or mats. Others were accompanied by small tools or ornaments, simple objects that hint at their lives but leave much to the imagination. The dead of Lothagam were honored, remembered, revered, in ways that speak to the deepest human need to preserve memory, to leave a mark upon the earth that will outlast the living. Yet the tomb is more than a resting place. It is a marker of knowledge, of human ingenuity. To build it required understanding of weight, balance, and geometry, even if these concepts were never written down. To place the stones upright without the aid of metal tools speaks to techniques developed through observation, experience, and careful trial. Every pillar stands because someone, thousands of years ago, experimented with levers, ramps, and human coordination until the stone moved where it was meant to be. Each pillar is a testament to collective human intelligence, the ability of a community to envision something larger than themselves and to bring it into being. There is also a spiritual aspect, quiet and profound. The tomb was built at a convergence of memory and land. Some researchers suggest that the orientation of the pillars relates to celestial events, marking solstices or lunar cycles, aligning the dead with the movements of the sun and moon. Perhaps the dead were believed to journey beyond the earth, to traverse the sky alongside these heavenly bodies. Perhaps the living needed this alignment, this ritual, to connect with forces greater than themselves. There is no way to know with certainty, but when you stand before the pillars at dawn or dusk, the long shadows stretching across the plain, the suggestion of such intentions becomes almost palpable. The materials themselves speak of time, stones quarried from distant locations, transported by hand, smoothed and shaped, placed with care, all evidence of an enduring purpose. This was a people deeply connected to the land, intimately aware of its capacities and limits, yet reaching beyond them to create permanence. Over the millennia, the landscape shifted, sands and soil accumulating around the stones, rivers altering their courses, yet the tomb remained, steadfast and silent, whispering the stories of a vanished world. In the quiet of the evening, imagine the first builders returning home after a day of lifting, carving, arranging. They speak softly, recounting the day's labors, sharing memories of ancestors, naming the stones as if they were companions. Around a fire, elders tell stories of the spirits that dwell in the plain, of the importance of remembrance, of the need to honor those who came before. And as night falls, the tomb stands, unfinished perhaps, yet alive with the intentions of those who worked tirelessly. The Lothagam Pillar Tomb challenges modern conceptions of ancient human society. It is a monument not to a single ruler or to conquest, but to community, to shared purpose, to the enduring human desire to leave something behind. It is a record in stone, silent yet articulate, a narrative of human devotion that predates the famous stoneworks of Egypt and the monumental constructions elsewhere in the ancient world. It suggests that even before kings and empires, humans had the capacity for vision, for collaboration, and for creating structures that echo through millennia. Consider the perspective of those who discover the tomb today. Archaeologists, researchers, and visitors stand before pillars that have weathered thousands of years, touching their surfaces, imagining the hands that carved them. The silence is almost overwhelming. There is no inscription, no written record, yet every stone speaks of effort, reverence, and intention. Each pillar is a voice calling across time, a reminder that human beings, even in remote and humble circumstances, have always sought to create meaning, to establish continuity, to connect life and death in ways both practical and profound. Walking among the pillars, you notice the spacing, the deliberate arrangement. Some stones lean against each other, forming corridors or semi-enclosures. Others stand alone, casting elongated shadows in the sun. The landscape is open, but the tomb carves a distinct space from it, a sanctuary within the ordinary. Perhaps the builders intended this isolation, creating a sacred place apart from the rhythms of daily life, a place where memory could dwell without disturbance, a space where the dead could rest in quiet dignity. And yet, despite its age and the care with which it was constructed, the tomb remains enigmatic. Questions outnumber answers. How long did it take to build? How were the stones transported? What ceremonies accompanied the interment of the dead? Were these pillars symbolic, practical, or both? And what became of the community that erected them, who vanished from the plains, leaving behind only their monumental works? The silence of the tomb is not empty. It is full of mysteries, waiting for patient minds to listen and to imagine. The Lothagam Pillar Tomb is not merely an archaeological site. It is a bridge across time, a conduit to the thoughts, feelings, and aspirations of humans who lived in a world far removed from ours, yet shared the same fundamental desires: to remember, to honor, to create, to leave something enduring. In that sense, it is timeless, offering a meditation on mortality, memory, and the enduring human spirit. As you walk away from the tomb, the wind shifting through the stones, the distant lake shimmering in the late afternoon light, you carry with you the resonance of those who built it. Their lives, now silent, continue to echo in the careful placement of each pillar, in the patterns of shadows, in the alignment of the stones with the sky. Lothagam reminds us that even without written language, even without rulers or empires, humans possess a capacity for vision that endures, leaving traces in the world that are as mysterious as they are magnificent. In the quiet expanse of Kenya's northern plains, beneath the unbroken sky, the Lothagam Pillar Tomb endures. It stands not only as a resting place for the dead, but as a monument to creativity, collaboration, and the human need to reach beyond the ephemeral. It is older than pyramids, older than memory, yet it speaks with clarity and grace, whispering truths about our ancestors that we are only beginning to understand. Each stone, each shadow, each alignment of pillars invites reflection, contemplation, and quiet wonder. The tomb exists not only as a historical artifact, but as a testament to the human spirit, resilient, visionary, and eternal. In its silent presence, one finds a connection to the past, a reminder that the stories of those who came before us, though often buried and forgotten, continue to shape our understanding of who we are, where we come from, and what it means to leave a mark upon the world. The Lothagam Pillar Tomb is more than stone. It is memory, ritual, devotion, and vision sculpted into permanence. It invites us to step softly across millennia, to witness, to ponder, to feel the weight of human ingenuity, and to recognize that even in the most remote reaches of time and space, humans have always sought to create, to remember, and to endure. The Lady of Elche, a quiet wind sweeps across the hills of southern Spain, carrying with it the dust of centuries, the echoes of forgotten lives, and the whispers of a time before history was written down in chronicles and ledgers. It is in this landscape of olive trees, sun-bleached rocks, and gentle slopes that the Lady of Elche once rested, long before she was discovered in a small, unremarkable village. The stone that forms her visage is silent, yet it speaks with an eloquence that transcends language, reaching across millennia to touch the imagination. The Lady of Elche is not a monumental statue towering over a city square, nor is she an altar carved into a temple. She is intimate, human in scale, a bust that captures a presence more than a posture. The moment you see her, you are confronted with the precision of her form, the careful carving of her features, the intricate arrangement of the headdress that crowns her head. It is as if she were waiting, poised in quiet majesty, for someone across the ages to notice her, to consider who she was, and to imagine what life was like in the Iberian Peninsula during the 4th or 5th century BCE. The headdress alone is astonishing. Large, symmetrical, and adorned with circular ornaments, it wraps around the lady's head like wings of a bird frozen in stone. It suggests status, ritual, perhaps a connection to the divine, or to the leaders of a community whose names have been lost to time. Each curve and fold is rendered with exquisite care, each detail suggesting a symbolic meaning that we can only attempt to decipher. Scholars have proposed that the headdress represents a crown of power, a ceremonial helmet, or perhaps even a symbolic portrayal of spiritual insight. Regardless of interpretation, it marks her as a figure of importance, someone who embodied the intersection of society, ritual, and artistry in her time. Her face is serene yet enigmatic. High cheekbones, a straight nose, and full lips are carved with precision that captures both individuality and universality. Her eyes, now hollowed by the passage of time, or perhaps intentionally left as sockets, gaze outward, inviting reflection. They are at once human and transcendent, a bridge between the mortal and the eternal. There is a sense of calm in her expression, a stillness that suggests introspection or wisdom. One imagines her observing ceremonies, listening to the conversations of her people, or perhaps embodying the collective ideals and spiritual aspirations of her society. The Lady of Elche was carved from limestone, a material abundant in the region, yet one that requires careful handling. Limestone is soft enough to be shaped with simple tools, yet durable enough to last centuries. The artisans who created her worked with patience and skill, chipping away small pieces, smoothing surfaces, and achieving the delicate balance between realism and symbolic representation. Each stroke of the chisel was intentional, each contour a choice that communicated status, identity, or perhaps a spiritual truth that is now lost to time. Archaeologists have debated her purpose for decades. Was she a funerary urn, designed to hold the ashes of the dead, as some evidence suggests? Or was she a cult object, used in rituals to invoke protection, fertility, or prosperity? Perhaps she was a representation of a goddess, a revered ancestor, or even a leader whose influence reached across villages and valleys. The mystery of her function adds to the allure, a gentle tension that draws the imagination deeper, encouraging the mind to wander across the centuries and across the lives that intersected with her presence. The Lady of Elche is also remarkable for what she tells us about the society that created her. The Iberian people were skilled in metallurgy, ceramics, and architecture. They traded widely, exchanging goods, ideas, and techniques across the Mediterranean. Yet amidst all this complexity, they also created intimate objects of beauty, artifacts that reflect both technical skill and aesthetic sensibility. The Lady of Elche is a window into their values, their spirituality, and their capacity to conceive of permanence in an impermanent world. Consider the moment of her discovery in 1897 in a small, forgotten plot of land near Elche. A laborer unearthed the bust, and suddenly, centuries of silence were interrupted. The lady emerged from the soil as if she had been waiting, patient and steadfast, for someone to recognize her. She had survived earthquakes, weathering, human negligence, and the slow erosion of memory, yet her form remained, capturing imaginations and inviting endless speculation. The headdress, with its carefully carved discs and spirals, is a marvel of both art and symbolism. Some suggest the circles represent cycles of life, of seasons, or of celestial movements. Others see them as a sign of social hierarchy, an indication that the figure represented a priestess, a queen, or a guardian of sacred knowledge. The possibilities are endless, each theory adding to the richness of her story and the mystery that surrounds her. Her shoulders, though partially preserved, suggest a grace and poise that is deliberate. Draped garments are implied, hinting at clothing styles, textile traditions, or ceremonial attire of her era. Every aspect of her design communicates an attention to proportion and harmony, a desire to render not just the body, but the presence of a person, someone who moved through space with purpose, awareness, and perhaps authority. Imagine standing before her, feeling the coolness of the stone, noticing the subtle imperfections that speak of human hands at work. There is a rhythm to the carving, a pulse in the way the chisel cut into the limestone, an almost musical cadence that speaks to the concentration and devotion of her creators. She is not simply a statue, she is a conversation across time, a dialogue that invites us to ponder life, culture, and the unbroken thread of human curiosity and creativity. The Lady of Elche is more than a representation of a person. She embodies the intersection of art, ritual, and memory. She is a manifestation of cultural identity, a tangible link to a civilization whose voices have faded. She reminds us that even in eras before written chronicles, humans expressed themselves, recorded their beliefs, and celebrated both the mundane and the sacred through objects that endure. Throughout her existence, she has inspired wonder. Art historians, archaeologists, and casual observers alike have paused to consider her meaning, her origin, and her purpose. She challenges us to look beyond the obvious, to see not just stone but intention, not just artistry but devotion, not just a face but a story. Her allure is timeless, her mystery unbroken, her presence commanding a kind of reverence that transcends generations. She also raises questions about trade and cultural contact. The Iberian Peninsula was a crossroads of influences from Phoenician traders, Mediterranean cultures, and local communities. Elements of her headdress and style suggest interactions with distant peoples, yet the form remains uniquely Iberian, This blend of local tradition and external influence hints at a world connected in subtle ways, a network of ideas, practices, and artisanship that spanned continents even in antiquity. Imagine the rituals that might have surrounded her. Perhaps she was displayed in a temple or a shrine, her gaze overseeing offerings, ceremonies, or prayers. Perhaps she was part of a procession, carried through the streets during festivals, or placed in the home of a prominent family to confer protection or status. Each scenario is plausible. Each possibility adds depth to her story. Each layer of interpretation allows her to live anew in the imagination of each observer. The Lady of Elche has also endured modern intrigue. Looters, collectors, and scholars have all contributed to the narrative of her survival, moving her from the soil to museums, from local awareness to global fascination. Yet through all this, she has maintained a presence that is unmistakable, a silent witness to both the reverence and the greed of those who encountered her. Her calm expression belies the tumult of the centuries around her, reminding us that art, once created, holds a power of its own, independent of human intention. Her proportions, her symmetry, and the careful attention to detail in her headdress continue to captivate. They are a testament to the capabilities of artisans who, without modern tools, achieved extraordinary precision. Each carving, each line, each curve was executed with patience and care, reflecting a culture deeply invested in both spirituality and artistic expression. The lady's existence proves that even societies we may think of as ancient possessed insight, aesthetic sensibility, and a desire to leave something enduring behind. Walking around her, one can imagine the Iberian landscape as it was then. Rolling hills dotted with settlements, the smell of earth and sea carried on the wind, small communities working the land, herders guiding livestock, artisans shaping clay, metal and stone. Within this environment, the Lady of Elche stood as a focal point, a symbol, a vessel of meaning, her headdress catching the sunlight, her face turning toward the people she watched over. The Lady of Elche is not merely a relic, she is an experience, an invitation to reflect on the continuity of human creativity. She reminds us that even when civilizations vanish, when names are forgotten and languages die, the essence of human ingenuity endures, carved in stone, preserved by time, waiting for someone to notice, to wonder, and to feel the connection that spans millennia. Every time she is studied, photographed, or simply observed, new insights emerge. Microscopic analysis reveals traces of pigment that hint she may once have been brightly painted. Small cavities suggest she may have held offerings or other sacred items. Each discovery deepens the narrative, enriching the understanding of a figure who has remained enigmatic for centuries, yet profoundly compelling. In her presence, the past is tangible. The Lady of Elche is a bridge between the ancient world and the present, a reminder that art can survive upheaval, change, and neglect. She carries within her the traces of countless human intentions, devotion, reverence, curiosity, and the desire to connect across time. She is not static. She is alive in imagination, scholarship, and reflection, a perpetual companion for those who seek to understand the depths of human expression. Her enigmatic eyes invite speculation. Did she represent a goddess, a priestess, a queen, or a mythic ideal? Each theory is as compelling as it is uncertain. She is, in every sense, a mirror, reflecting the questions, hopes, and interpretations of every observer who stands before her. The lady does not dictate answers, she allows the mind to wander, to imagine, to construct stories, and in this interaction the dialogue between past and present is maintained. The Lady of Elche continues to inspire artists, historians, and enthusiasts. She has become an icon of Iberian culture, a symbol of the sophistication, artistry, and spirituality of the people who lived along the Mediterranean coast long before the rise of Rome. Her survival is a testament to resilience, not just of the stone from which she is carved, but of the ideas, rituals, and aesthetics she embodies. To contemplate the Lady of Elche is to engage with humanity itself. She is a reflection of the desire to create, to honor, to embody ideals, and to connect the present with the past. The stone, cool under the fingertips, the intricacy of the headdress, the serenity of her expression, all combine to tell a story that transcends words, inviting patience, reflection, and wonder. The Lady of Elche endures. Her stone form a whisper across centuries. She is more than a bust, she is a portal to the ancient world, a keeper of secrets, a testament to the enduring power of human creativity and the subtle, profound ways in which people have sought to leave a mark upon the earth. In the quiet contemplation of her presence, one feels the weight of history, the depth of imagination, and the beauty of a civilization expressed not in grand conquests or written decrees, but in the artistry of a single unforgettable figure. The Oklo Natural Nuclear Reactor. Deep in the lush forests of Gabon, where rivers wind lazily through a canopy that hums with the quiet rhythms of life, there lies a secret hidden beneath layers of soil and stone, a testament to the astonishing ingenuity of nature long before humans ever walked the earth. This is the Oklo natural nuclear reactor, a phenomenon that stretches the imagination, bridging the unimaginable span of geological time with the subtle precision of atomic energy. Imagine a place where, nearly 2 billion years ago, the Earth itself became a laboratory, conducting nuclear reactions with an elegance that scientists would only discover billions of years later. Long before human civilization, before the first whispers of language or writing, before the pyramids or stone circles, the planet was already experimenting with forces that humankind would spend centuries trying to understand. Uranium-rich deposits, lying quietly underground, became the heart of a natural process so extraordinary that its discovery would challenge centuries of assumptions. Groundwater percolated through the seams of rock, acting as a moderator for neutrons, and under perfect conditions, a chain reaction ignited, a natural nuclear fission reaction, sustained over hundreds of thousands of years. The rhythm was organic, a gentle cycle of heat and cooling, reaction and dormancy, orchestrated by geology and chemistry alone. It is difficult to grasp the scale of what occurred at Oklo. The reactions were not catastrophic explosions, but long, measured releases of energy, producing heat and altering minerals within the rock. Xenon isotopes were trapped in place. Uranium-235 slowly depleted, leaving a record of a process that played out over hundreds of millennia. These rocks became diaries of ancient power, inscriptions in atomic language that would remain unread for nearly 2 billion years, waiting for human curiosity to awaken them. In 1972, scientists examining uranium ore noticed something unusual. The proportion of uranium-235 was lower than expected, suggesting that the ore had undergone fission naturally, a phenomenon previously thought impossible outside of human-made reactors. The discovery astonished physicists and geologists alike. Here was proof that the Earth had been capable of nuclear reactions long before humans even understood the atom. The natural reactor at Oklo was not a singular event, but a series of fission zones, each operating in cycles dictated by water flow and uranium concentration, each leaving behind isotopic fingerprints that could be read billions of years later. Imagine the cycles of water seeping through the rocks, slowly heating, expanding, and moderating neutrons, allowing the reaction to ignite and then subside in an elegant dance dictated by nature itself. This was energy operating in perfect balance, an unobserved symphony of atomic physics that required no human oversight, no technology, no understanding. It is a profound reminder that natural processes often surpass human engineering in subtlety and efficiency, operating on timescales and with precision that can seem almost sentient. The Oklo reactor also offers extraordinary lessons about longevity and containment. Despite releasing immense energy over geological time, the reactor's byproducts remain stable, safely trapped in the surrounding rock. The fission products, some of which would pose serious hazards if released today, were naturally contained by the geology itself. This is a quiet testament to the resilience of natural systems, a blueprint that modern engineers and scientists study with reverence as they attempt to manage nuclear waste and design systems capable of containing energy over millennia. Walking through the Gabonese landscape today, it is nearly impossible to imagine the power that once hummed beneath your feet. The forests, rivers, and wildlife seem serene, but beneath the surface, the echoes of atomic reactions remain embedded in the stone, whispering the story of an Earth capable of harnessing energy on a scale and with a subtlety that defies imagination. The patterns of isotopes, the traces of xenon, the altered minerals, all speak in a language of physics and chemistry, revealing the precise choreography of reactions that took place long before life had a name or form. The Oklo phenomenon challenges our conception of what is natural and what is human-made. Here, in the stillness of Gabon, nature had achieved what humans would only later replicate in laboratories with complex engineering, sustained nuclear fission, heat production, and isotope transformation. It is an ancient laboratory, a place where energy was released in measured cycles, creating a record that could survive eons, waiting patiently to be discovered. One can trace the journey of neutrons through the uranium-rich rocks, imagine them colliding and splitting nuclei, releasing energy in infinitesimal yet profound bursts. The heat dissipated into surrounding minerals and groundwater, subtly altering the environment while maintaining stability. It is an exquisite balance of forces, a natural experiment conducted over hundreds of thousands of years, precise in timing, elegant in execution, and entirely self-regulating. Scientists marvel not only at the existence of the reactor, but also at the wealth of information it offers. The isotopic ratios provide a glimpse into processes occurring billions of years ago, a window into the chemical and physical conditions of the early Earth. The Oklo reactor is a time capsule, preserving evidence of the universe's natural capacity to manipulate energy, a reminder that human technology is only a continuation of patterns that have existed since the Earth was young. Even today, the knowledge gleaned from Oklo informs modern nuclear science. The natural containment of radioactive byproducts inspires confidence in long-term storage strategies. The understanding of neutron moderation and fission cycles aids in designing safer reactors. Every measurement, every analysis is a conversation with the past, a meditation on the patient, unhurried, and precise processes that shaped the world long before we arrived. The hum of the ancient reactions resonates silently, a story told in isotopes and mineral structures. Walking over the forested hills, one can sense the magnitude of time, the vast stretches of eons that separate us from the moment when the Earth itself ignited a controlled chain reaction, a quiet symphony of atomic forces. The cycles of fission were imperceptible to life above, yet they shaped the subterranean chemistry, altering minerals, producing noble gases, and leaving a record of a natural mastery of energy. Oklo teaches us patience and humility. The Earth operates on scales of time and energy that dwarf human comprehension. Reactions that spanned hundreds of thousands of years leave behind subtle traces that only the most attentive observers can detect. The natural reactor is both a marvel and a mirror, reflecting the ingenuity inherent in natural processes, reminding us that our technologies are merely echoes of principles the planet has been practicing for billions of years. The beauty of Oklo is not in spectacle but in subtlety, the quiet transformation of uranium atoms, the gentle moderation of neutrons, the controlled release of energy, all without catastrophe. Nature, in its profound wisdom, designed a system that's self-regulated, self-contained, and remarkably stable, producing energy in a form that could endure through unimaginable spans of time. Contemplating Oklo invites reflection on our relationship with energy, technology, and the Earth. Modern reactors rely on human intervention, materials, and calculations, yet Oklo achieved similar outcomes through sheer natural alignment. It demonstrates that complexity and precision can emerge from simple processes, given sufficient time and the right conditions. The natural reactor is a meditation on scale, balance, and the harmony that emerges when forces are allowed to interact freely, guided by the laws of physics. Even now, the site of Oklo holds secrets yet to be fully understood. Detailed studies continue to reveal subtleties of fission, isotopic movement, and geological containment. Each discovery adds depth to our appreciation of the Earth's capabilities, reminding us that beneath the forest floor, hidden from view, there exist phenomena that challenge our imagination and deepen our respect for the planet's quiet, enduring power. From the perspective of human history, Oklo is almost inconceivably ancient. Long before tools, before language, before even simple multicellular life, the Earth was conducting processes that we now recognize as the foundation of nuclear physics. The reactor zones are not merely geological formations, they are historical documents written in atoms, a testament to the precision, patience, and persistence of natural law. The cycles of fission, moderated by water and contained by rock, reveal a story of balance and adaptation. Energy was released, isotopes transformed, and byproducts stabilized, all without human intervention. It is a process both simple in principle and astonishing in execution, an elegant dance that unfolded over eons, recorded silently in the stone, awaiting discovery. As we reflect on the Oklo natural nuclear reactor, we are drawn into a meditation on time, power, and the subtle genius of the natural world. The site is a bridge between past and present, connecting billions of years of geological history with the human pursuit of knowledge. It teaches patience, precision, and reverence for processes that operate far beyond the scale of human life. The rivers of Gabon continue their gentle flow, the forests rustle with life, and above, the sun arcs across the sky as it has for millennia. Yet beneath the surface, the echoes of atomic reactions persist, frozen in isotopes and mineral formations, a testament to the quiet mastery of energy by the Earth itself. The Oklo natural nuclear reactor is more than a geological curiosity. It is a story of balance, ingenuity, and enduring wonder. A reminder that the world has long been conducting experiments beyond our imagination, and that the universe often achieves mastery in ways that surpass even our highest technologies. Even as we study, measure, and ponder, the ancient reactions remain a profound lesson in harmony, containment, and patience. Energy can exist, transform, and endure without chaos, when guided by principles older than humanity itself. The Oklo natural nuclear reactor whispers to us through its isotopes, rocks, and minerals, telling a story of ancient power, quiet precision, and the enduring genius of the natural world. The Earth, through Oklo, speaks across billions of years, reminding us that the forces that shape our world are patient, measured, and often hidden, yet capable of creating processes that inspire awe, reflection, and a deep respect for the subtlety and power of nature. The Ain Ghazal statues, Wundian, and the quiet plains of Jordan, where the desert stretches gently toward the horizon and the sun casts long, warm shadows across the earth. There lies a secret of human ingenuity that predates written history. At the ancient site of Ain Ghazal, archaeologists uncovered a remarkable collection of statues, small yet profoundly evocative, fashioned from plaster over reed cores. representing human figures with strikingly abstract features, each bearing witness to the thoughts, beliefs, and rituals of a people who lived nearly 9,000 years ago. These are the Ain Ghazal statues, and they whisper a story of ancestors long gone, frozen in time, yet alive in presence. Walking through the remnants of this Neolithic settlement, one can almost hear the faint echoes of daily life, the soft rhythm of hands shaping clay, the distant laughter of children, the measured footsteps of those tending livestock or planting the first seeds of agriculture. And amidst these routines, the people of Ain Ghazal were crafting something different, something lasting. They took reeds, simple and pliable, forming a skeletal core, and then carefully coated them in plaster, shaping human forms with elongated limbs, pronounced eyes, and abstracted, serene faces. Each statue was more than art. It was a presence, a connection to memory, ritual, and perhaps the spirit of ancestors themselves. The statues range in size, some towering nearly 2 meters, others small enough to cradle in one's hands, yet each carries a profound sense of intentionality. The figures are enigmatic, often headless or with hollow eyes that seem to look both outward and inward, bridging the gap between the material world and the unseen. Some are paired, suggesting relationships or dualities, while others stand alone, silent sentinels of an ancient community. The precision of the plasterwork, even after millennia underground, speaks to a people who understood the fragility and permanence of their creations, embedding both care and meaning into every layer. These statues were found buried beneath the floors of houses and in special pits, often intentionally placed, as if returning them to the earth after their role in life had concluded. The reasons for their creation remain shrouded in mystery. Were they representations of ancestors, guardians of the household, or objects used in ritual ceremonies to ensure fertility, prosperity, or protection? Each theory offers a glimpse into the minds of those who walked the earth so long ago, and yet none can fully capture the quiet power these statues hold. It is humbling to consider that these figures have survived nearly 9 millennia, enduring the passage of time, climatic changes, and the silent weight of centuries pressing upon them. The plaster, fragile to the touch, has held together against all odds, preserving the shapes and expressions that convey a humanity that transcends time. The elongated limbs and simplified forms hint at a sophisticated understanding of human anatomy and abstraction, suggesting that these early communities were capable of profound artistic and conceptual thought. The eyes of the Ain Ghazal statues are perhaps their most compelling feature. Deeply hollowed, they evoke a sense of watchfulness, as if the ancestors themselves are gazing upon the present. Some scholars speculate that these eyes were once filled with bitumen or other materials to give them lifelike presence, and even without that, they carry a quiet authority. Standing before one, it is easy to feel both the presence of history and the weight of continuity, as though these figures are witnesses to the span of human existence, bridging past, present, and future. The process of making the statues was labor-intensive and meticulous. The reed cores had to be carefully bundled and shaped, the plaster mixed to the right consistency, and each layer applied with precision to avoid cracks or breaks. In some cases, pigments or other decorative elements may have been added, though much of this detail has faded with time. Yet even in their weathered state, the statues convey a deliberate beauty, a blend of abstraction and realism that communicates far more than words ever could. One can imagine the rituals that surrounded these statues. Perhaps they were part of ceremonies marking the seasons, honoring the dead, or invoking protection over crops, animals, and families. The community of Ain Ghazal had begun to transition from a purely hunter-gatherer lifestyle to one of settlement and agriculture, and with that shift came new forms of social organization, belief, and artistic expression. The statues are tangible evidence of this transformation, capturing both the human form and the human spirit, an interface between life, death, and memory. It is remarkable to consider the scale and number of these statues. Over 50 figures have been uncovered, many in fragments, yet each fragment adds to the story. The sheer number suggests that they were not isolated artistic experiments but an integral part of daily life and communal identity. Perhaps each family maintained its own figures, or perhaps they represented the community as a whole, embodying shared values, beliefs, and memories. The repetition and variation among the statues indicate a culture that valued continuity, while also embracing individuality and expression. The Ain Ghazal statues also illuminate the Neolithic understanding of permanence and impermanence. While crafted to endure, many were intentionally buried, suggesting a cyclical concept of life, death, and renewal. The act of creating, venerating, and then returning the figures to the earth reflects a worldview in which human presence and natural cycles were intertwined, and where material objects could mediate between the living and the ancestral, the temporal and the eternal. In modern times, these statues provide an extraordinary window into the Neolithic mind. They challenge assumptions about the sophistication of early societies, revealing that even before written language, humans were capable of complex symbolic thought, abstract representation, and spiritual or ritualistic expression. Each figure is a conversation across time, speaking to the universal human desire to understand existence, preserve memory, and connect with something larger than oneself. The setting of Ain Ghazal itself enhances the impact of these discoveries. The settlement sits within a fertile landscape, where water, soil, and stone offered resources for early agriculture, while the surrounding hills and plains provided security and continuity. The combination of environment and human creativity allowed for the flourishing of a culture that produced these remarkable artifacts, embedding meaning and care into every figure and leaving a record that transcends time. In examining the statues today, one becomes aware of the profound relationship between humans and their environment. The materials, reed, plaster, perhaps pigments, were sourced locally, transformed with skill and patience, and imbued with intention. The community's connection to their surroundings, to one another, and to the unseen dimensions of existence is palpable in each curve, line, and hollowed eye. The statues are not merely objects but embodiments of thought, culture, and memory. Each time a fragment is pieced together or a statue reconstructed, the past breathes again. Archaeologists and researchers handle these figures with reverence, aware that they are not merely studying artifacts, but engaging in a dialogue with ancestors whose lives and beliefs resonate across the millennia. The plaster, now hardened into stone-like permanence, was once malleable, shaped by hands guided by knowledge, intuition, and care. In this transformation, from soft, pliable material to enduring form, the essence of human creativity is preserved. The abstract features of the statues invite contemplation. The stylized heads, elongated bodies, and carefully proportioned limbs suggest a deliberate departure from strict realism. Perhaps this abstraction reflects a worldview in which the spirit was as important as the body, where symbolic representation conveyed meaning beyond mere appearance. The deliberate simplicity of the forms allows the imagination to engage, to perceive personality, emotion, and presence, drawing the viewer into a quiet, reflective conversation with the distant past. Even now, the statues inspire awe. Their presence is both intimate and monumental, bridging the gap between ordinary life and ritual, between the human and the divine. Standing before them, one can sense the weight of generations, the patience of a community shaping, honoring, and ultimately returning their creations to the earth. It is a reminder that human creativity and spiritual expression have always been intertwined, and that the impulse to make, to represent, and to connect is timeless. The discovery of the Ain Ghazal statues has reshaped our understanding of Neolithic societies. They are evidence that even before writing, before cities, humans were capable of sophisticated symbolic thought and ritual practice. The statues speak not only of ancestry and memory, but also of a deep, enduring human desire to leave a mark, to communicate across time, and to understand the mysteries of existence. Walking among the fragments, one can sense the silent conversations that must have taken place, of hands shaping, eyes carving, minds contemplating meaning. The process was not rushed, it was patient, deliberate, and infused with care. Each statue is a meditation on life, death, community, and memory, a physical manifestation of thought and belief, preserved against the erosions of time. The Ain Ghazal statues remain a bridge between our world and that of early humans. They invite reflection on the continuity of human experience, the desire to create, to honor, to memorialize, and to connect. In their abstract eyes and enduring forms, we glimpse the origins of art, religion, and social identity, and we are reminded that even in a time long before history, humans sought meaning, presence, and connection. As centuries turned into millennia, the statues lay buried, hidden from view, silent witnesses to the passage of time. And yet, their survival allows us to engage in a dialogue across ages, to contemplate the lives, beliefs, and intentions of a people who understood that creation is both act and message, material and memory, ephemeral and enduring. The Ain Ghazal statues are more than archaeological artifacts. They are echoes of a world that existed before written records, before kingdoms, before recorded history. They are human presence distilled into form, a testament to the enduring power of art, ritual, and imagination. Each figure, whether fragmented or whole, tells a story of care, thoughtfulness, and the timeless human impulse to create and to connect. Standing among the statues, one cannot help but feel a quiet awe. The Neolithic people of Ain Ghazal, in their small community, achieved something extraordinary, transforming simple materials into enduring symbols, embedding their beliefs and memories into tangible forms, and leaving behind a legacy that continues to inspire, challenge, and captivate. In their silent, plastered forms, the Ain Ghazal statues continue to watch, to witness, and to communicate. They speak in a language beyond words, in shapes, textures, and presence, reminding us that even in the deepest recesses of time, human creativity and spiritual expression found a way to endure. They are ancestors who still have stories to tell, and in their quiet gaze, the past is alive, ever-present, and infinitely mysterious. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the world's most mysterious artifacts. If you enjoyed exploring these ancient secrets, like and subscribe, and share where you're watching from. More mysteries await. Stay curious.